Okay, wait, Sean, I'm sorry to stop you.
Yeah.
I screwed up. I didn't start the recording till just now. So let's start over.
Okay.
I'm
yes,
so
this
sorry
is live.
about that.
We are live. Live is fine. All right, go ahead.
We're live,
it's recording
and
now.
today is November 22nd, 2015 in the U.S. If you're in the U.S., I'm Deb. I'm Deborah Pietsch, and this is also who you were just hearing is Sean, also known as Awake-In-3D. You want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
And the intention that we are bringing forth with this call, and which will eventually, I believe, turn into a show more than just a call, but just setting the intention here and being very clear about what we are intending to bring forth. That the intention in Dinar Land is for us to unify, is for us to bring through transparency, to really anchor from a place of and a perspective of truth, that we're also shining the light on a lot of this disinformation and the lack of integrity, so that we really can claim this reality of this global currency reset. So no matter how long you've been involved in this journey, or this roller coaster, whatever you want to refer to it as, the global currency reset, which is really what many of us are referring to it as now, is really a very important part of our New Earth reality coming into alignment. And so as you participate on this call, this show, that you're really engaging from a perspective of intention, and that your intention is to further align yourself as an anchor of the vibration of wealth being distributed across the planet, so that it's no longer held in what many refer to as the 1% percenters, but that we are the vibration of the wealth for it to be distributed, and that we're part of the conduit and the catalyst for that to come into alignment. So we have a lot that we want to talk about. We've got a special guest that's coming on as well. We are going to open up the line for Q&A. I do want to just say a couple of housekeeping things, is that yes, this is being recorded. We started a little bit late, so we're restarting the intro here. And also that if you come on for the Q&A, if you are calling in, that you don't use your last name, just use your first name. And that we really are coming from a perspective that we're in this together, and that we're here to create a unified field, and that this is a no-holds-barred conversation, and that we're really holding that this vibration for this GCR, especially today being November 22nd, which is the 52nd anniversary of JFK's crossing from this dimension, this plane. That's another thing that we're going to talk about, is really getting us back into alignment with the reality, the trajectory of the reality that being of light was holding for us and for humanity. So without any further ado, I really want to have Sean jump in here. Sean, please share again where you are very serendipitously in the parking lot of a
Wells Fargo bank.
And unexpectedly.
Right next to a Burger King. Yeah, this is where I pulled over to do the show on my monumentous road trip that's going live as we speak. But I didn't intend, I was going to be at a nice resort kind of place, but I ended up here through a serendipitous chain of events. So anyway, that's good enough. All right, should we get started, Deb?
Yeah, and the one thing that I was saying to Sean, just to share here, is we talked just a few minutes before we actually started the show, and I just said, okay, as you're doing this, since you're in front of a Wells Fargo, and I'm going to ask everybody to visualize this as well, and really not just visualize it, but activate it. Activate that Wells Fargo bank. I mean, the Wells Fargo has been for this journey, the Wells Fargo bank has really been the lead bank that we all keep hearing about, right? So,
big time. Yep.
So let's activate that Wells Fargo and the chain of Wells Fargos across the country for this to be revealed through. All right, so Sean, let's rock and roll. Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, I'll kind of set the tone here a little bit, and I want to stress that this is a completely unscripted show. We do hope that this show will become a regular thing. We're gonna gauge how this goes tonight, and also what happens with the replay, which I expect will get around Dinar Land pretty fast, because we're going to talk about some pretty interesting things, and I don't know what we're going to talk about exactly. I've got some bullet points here, but this is a show for all of you that are listening, all of you that are hearing this recording right now on a playback, to in essence allow open questions about the GCR, about the RV, about everything connected to it, and get it out, and let's have a discussion and bring some information that really can't be, let's say is not being shared in some of the more open forums, or being censored, if you will, or clamped down or gagged or whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not going to divulge secrets here that are going to jeopardize anything. That's not the purpose of this call. There is a level of secrecy that must be maintained. I have quite a bit of information that there is no way I can put out. It would be irresponsible of me to do that. Being a former executive and entrepreneur and all that, there is a reason why some things cannot be revealed and made public, even if it is in a contained Dinar Land type of area. But I'm going to share some pretty interesting things tonight, and I hope and want, actually I don't hope, I don't believe in the word hope, I expect and want people to call in and ask questions, because that's how we're going to get this thing engaged. So let me just kick this off a little bit. My screen name on many boards is Awake-In-3D across Dinar Land. In the chat rooms and websites or whatnot, if you haven't heard from me in a while, I used to be hosted a lot about a year ago, going back from there, but I've gone underground in the last year or so. Basically, I wanted to dig deep into all the things in this universal event that we all call collectively the global currency reset, and even the bigger picture beyond that, because there is many more things coming, and we'll talk about those in future shows. And I am a part-time researcher, part-time alchemist, and for those of you that know what an alchemist is, got nothing to do with turning lead into gold, baby. I'm a part technologist. I have a lot of experience in business in technologies, nano technologies, particles, fluidics, different things like that. Business executive, entrepreneur. I'm also very much into esoteric, spiritual, truth-seeking type of engagements anywhere it takes me around the world. I've been blessed enough to be able to travel to over 50 countries around the world, and that's actually my travels that led me to the information of the GCR, the RV. It didn't come to me by someone saying, hey, look, you ought to buy this currency. I actually learned about it through a vastly different path. So tonight I'm your co-host in this inaugural first show along with Deb Pietsch, and this is going to be a series of caller-driven, I want to stress that, caller-driven radio, like a radio-like show where we're going to explore all things GCR, global currency reset related. So it's important that you call in and you get what's on your mind out, all right? And that's how it's going to lead to all of the people that are listening now and all the people that are going to be listening throughout this coming week on the replay, answering questions or getting information that they wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. So with your help, this can become an important vehicle, and that we're really endeavoring here in this forum to discuss and put the pieces together of this vastly complex, confusing, and very mysterious event in our lifetimes, which we call the global currency reset. So if you have questions about this life-altering epic event, I'm talking Cecil B. DeMille kind of epic event, this is the place to be, right here, right now, on future calls. Let's get this thing going. What we want to discuss are subjects such as economics. I mean, I can talk hard economics all day long. Financial architecture and the various entities involved. We want to discuss exchange groups. Everyone wants to talk about groups. Who's in a group? What's in a group? What's a group? Are we in a group? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Actually, I think I do know. Then the what's and whys and the possible structures of these groups. But again, without audience participation, we're not going to get too far because I don't want to listen to myself talk. Yeah, I can listen to Deb talk, but certainly not me. We want to explore, what do we want to say, the more so-called conspiracy side of this event, involving the planners, the players, the architects. All right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the background and even in some of the chat rooms about that. We want to delve into the bigger picture in terms of the human and the spiritual aspect of the GCR, in terms of the energies, the emotions. I think, if anything, we can all identify with in this multi-year. I don't care if you've been in it for 6 months or if you've been in it for 9 years like I have from the beginning. I think we all have had tremendous emotional reactions, changes to everything that's been going on throughout this event. I want to talk about the spiritual and emotional sides as well, both before the GCR and after the exchanges, because there's a lot coming after. So
a lot.
And finally, I think, Deb, what we want to also dig into is the so-called, I don't want to say conspiracy, but the more out there side of the GCR. Let's call it the good guys versus the bad guys. The implications of the fiat currency extinction event. That's what we're talking about here. The extinction of fiat currency. And if anyone's done any research at all, even for 20 minutes on fiat currency and what it means in global economics, we all know it is a non-sustainable end event, right? And we're on it right now. That's hence the entire reason for the global currency reset. We want to talk about the freedom from the bonds of financial slavery, right? The debt system, everything you read. I don't care. You watch CNBC, you watch the financial news channels, you read the Wall Street Journal. Everything is centered around debt. It's almost like debt, debt's a good thing. Is it? Are you a FICO score, people? I'm not, all right? I don't give a rat's butt about my FICO score. That's the truth. And if you saw it, you would know that I'm telling the truth. So, but just think about a society that bases its part of its value on what your credit score is by how much you can borrow or that. I mean, all right, I'm going off tangent here. So anyway, and then also this show is about talking about end of the manipulations and lies that we all live through daily from both governmental and commercial / corporate entities that see us all merely as chattel, pawns, and the word I really disdain, consumers. All right? Yes, I'm a consumer. Yeah. All right, so to the audience, to people listening, and to people coming on future shows, if you're listening to the replay, if you have information regarding any of the subjects I've just mentioned, if you just have been looking for a way to get out and talk about it, even if you think it's completely off base or if it's very true and factual, There's a lot of fact, actually, in some of the crazier stuff out there in this GCR. This is the show for you. Get on the line, call us, and Deb, you're going to need to keep saying the number. Well, actually, it doesn't matter because you're already listening. You know the number.
Well,
right?
actually,
right,
what it is, if you've called in, the way to get into the Q&A queue is by doing *6 on your phone, and we have the Q&A open right now. So you can. There's only a couple people in there right now, so please go ahead and get into the queue if you're interested in participating with question or any engagement. One of the things, Sean, I wanted to
opinions. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I just wanted to backtrack just a tad, because you shared a little bit about your background in regards to how in getting into this. And I have a very different experience of how I found out about it, which I don't think I've ever even shared this, but I just thought I'll just quickly share at this point. And for those of you that haven't seen any of my shows, Wake Up Shift is Happening, or listened to any of the other calls, or don't know anything about my background, actually my background is award-winning producer in the entertainment industry turned spiritual teacher. So when Sean starts talking about esoteric and spiritual, that has become very much my forte because of the telepathic communication that I engage with, and then the details of confirmations and evidence that appear and that I demand basically in this dimension. And so for me, how I actually found out about this was back in it was June of 2010, and I was living up in Ashland, Oregon at the time, completely out of the entertainment industry and shifting gears a bit, and I was being taught by my guides, and you guys will hear me refer to my guides. And this is beings such as Saint Germain and Metatron and others. But for the moment, I refer to them as guides. And I get very, very detailed information. Sean, you have been on the other end of that at least a dozen or more times, correct?
Yep, correct. Yes, I have. Very powerful stuff. I mean, I'm a natural-born 3D skeptic, if you will, right? And I got to say, you blew my mind with some of the things, which is why I'm really happy that we kind of have both sides here, right? I mean, I'm all about talking in economics, talking about who's doing what, talking about the IMF, talking about what's going on globally, who is the admiral, who's Michael Cottrell, who are the elders, what's the goal back, where is the money coming from to fund the GCR, who are the groups, how are the groups structured from, the best that anybody can put together, that kind of stuff. And then on the other side, which I firmly believe in, is there is a much broader picture to this GCR. This GCR is just the beginning. This is a catalyst, if you will, for humanity in general, right? And that's why I bring up the freedom from debt slavery and the fiat system, because it really is a system that goes back all the way to the Sumerian days, right? Pre-Egyptian type of cultures. The banking system was formed, and it used to be called the usury system, which is the form of charging interest, loaning money to others and then collecting interest, which became a business in and of itself, which leads to the money changers in the Bible and all of these types of things. So I'm really, I'm honored to be here and co-hosting this with you, Deb, because, I really think this show is going to, bring a lot of different aspects and different perspectives on what's really going on. This isn't just a currency being revalued and you're going to go into an exchange center, or later on when the public thing happens. And we'll talk about public versus private. Are you private people or are you public? You think you're going to
And what's the value in going public to
private? And what's going to be the value of your currency when this GCR goes public? Have you ever thought about when the TRN comes out and the United States dollar is gold backed? Is that going to be useless or worthless? That's what's going on in the public, and let's get this kind of stuff out there because we all need to know about this and be educated from all aspects of this. And Deb, I think you're way above me. I'm in 3D, which is why my screen name on a lot of the sites is Awake-In-3D. I am awake, but I am very 3D, and you're where I'm trying to get, right? 5D and above, or whatever we want to say, right? So.
Well, okay, so the one thing that I just wanted to share in regards to how I found out about this, because it was not 3D. I'm like the person that people would talk about, like the goes into a cave and for several years, and I spent several years, a lot of my time out of LA and in Mount Shasta and Ashland, Oregon, very isolated from regular life while I was basically being taught by my guides and honing in my telepathic communication, as well as becoming an activator. But here's the interesting thing, and where we, just you and I, bring forth a difference here in this field. I was actually being told by my guides back in June of 2010, when I was really trying to manifest a great deal of wealth to bring forth a humanitarian project. And what was actually figured out at that time was that there was a tremendous amount of infiltration, and every time I got close to manifesting that money, there was infiltration, and I mean major infiltration, where it was showing up in this dimension in ways that were crazy. And what my guide said was, go back to LA. Everything's going to change after 10-10-10. The money will now be dispersed after the gateway of 10-10-10. So I went back to LA. At the end of July, I arrived back in LA, and I started on working with different clients and projects. And it was mid-November that I had a client that came to me to work with me for branding and for her website, because I also used to have an agency and do web development and internet strategies. And it was with her that I heard the word dinar for the very first time. So it was literally 2 weeks. It was about 2 to 3 weeks after this 10-10-10 gateway. Now, what I learned afterwards is that the Iraqi parliament came back online on 10-10-10. And that's when they were intending to resurrect this revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. And then it wasn't until December 10th I was with at a very 3D 10 days of marketing seminars and whatnot, and I was then asked, do you know about the dinar? And it was with somebody that I knew kind of had some very esoteric inroads, and I tuned in at that point with my guides, and I asked, is this something I'm supposed to know about? And it was 2 days later is when I went and did my first reserve, basically, because we were out in the middle of nowhere, and I really just needed to get to a bank and do a reserve. But that's how I found out about it. It was my guides actually said, yes, 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 do this. This is what is going to open the doors for more of the wealth distribution of what you need to bring forth your life's purpose. So I actually haven't shared that before. So it was a more esoteric guidance for me in regards to getting involved. And every step of the way, for me, this has been very much about the spiritual aspect of what this means for humanity. So, and what this means for each of us individually, as we're really being called forth to re-examine or re-value ourselves, just like what you're talking about, Sean, with this enslavement matrix and with the debt slavery is for us to actually reevaluate ourselves and revalue ourselves much more, not on our FICA rating, but much more on the value of our heart and the vibration that we're putting out as our purity of heart, knowing that value, who we are and the value we hold as a human being has abso-freaking-lutely nothing to do with our FICA rating or what we have in the bank or don't have in the bank. So, or the assets, right? Yeah.
I think that's an amazing point, is that we all say the RV every day, right? And we're waiting for the RV. And what I believe is that what's really happening is what's being reevaluated is our awareness and our own, self opinions or the view of ourselves. We're revaluing ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and the vehicle could be the currency, right? I mean, let's face it, money brings a lot of things in this 3D world and all that, but what this RV is all about, it's not an RV of currencies, it's an RV of the human soul, the human spirit, and us remembering who we are and reclaiming our power. So
absolutely.
This is what I love, Deb. Your sharing of how you learned about the GCR, or at least the RV of the Dinar, mine, being more multidimensional, mine very 3D. Right? I was sitting in first class on a 747 flying into Vietnam on business, and the guy next to me was a senior member of Vietnamese government. And we got to talking, and at the end we became friends. And he told me, you might want to buy some VND. And I go, well, I'm getting VND as soon as I land because, I'm going to be in Vietnam for about a week and a half. And he's like, no, you may want to. And I go, what do you mean? And he told me that there is stuff going on with the Vietnamese currency that will be very, very attractive. And he said, especially for people outside of Vietnam who own the currency, right? Because this brings up another issue I'm sure we'll talk about either tonight or in other shows, is how is it that the people of Vietnam or Iraq are going to all of a sudden have a currency that's worth all of these in a certain value of U.S. dollars, which basically means, I don't know how many people have been to Vietnam or whatever, but the average Vietnamese on the street will have 25 or 100,000 VND, right? And if all of a sudden the VND is going to be valued at some rate of 79 cents through $2, all right, what does that mean? An entire nation of people are suddenly going to have hundreds of thousands of U.S. dollars worth of value in their pocket, right, that they would normally go and buy a DVD with? So how does that even work economically, right? You've got all these people that are all of a sudden fabulously wealthy. What it means is, what, are we going to stay in our country, or we're going to want to, go somewhere else, right? This is what this show is about. We want to learn and discuss the real things that people aren't talking about, on the more public Dinar sites and things like that. So this is why I think that, I've learned about it through a very specific kind of, call it business travel, if you will. And
right.
Completely
different than what I got.
Yeah. but this is the thing. You got the same message about the same issue, which tells me in my logical 3D brain that there is more to this than just my side of it or the kind of practical, economic, financial, type of aspect versus if this is going on esoterically and this information is out there, that must mean if one is true, the other must be partly true or partially true from both sides, either on the 3D side or the multidimensional side, and what it means for us as spiritual beings and things like that.
And for the evolution of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we ought to move on to some. We should probably move on, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Okay, so we actually have people in the queue, and then
because this ain't about me talking or you, right? It's about everybody who's listening here.
Yes.
Yep.
And the other thing too is that what we've just given is kind of an overview, and what we want to do is start to go, well, one of the things that I experienced when I started to research, and I have a feeling a lot of you can relate to this, is it was my awakening to what Sean is referring to as like the debt matrix, the debt enslavement. I went down the rabbit hole. When I first learned about this, I went down that rabbit hole and started researching and wanted to understand what were they talking about regarding fiat currency. What was this? So I went down that rabbit hole. If you have not gone down that rabbit hole, my suggestion is that you actually start. And where we
absolutely.
Right? Because it's absolutely imperative for you to understand why this GCR is so important for the planet, for humanity, and how we have viewed ourselves. And here's a question because we have our caller, we have our guest that I'd like to go, I think it would be good for us to actually go down that rabbit hole of why we even asked this person to be on the call tonight. But one of the things I'd like to just invite you to ask yourself, if you had not heard about this GCR, if you didn't know about the revaluations of these currencies, would you be even in the mindset that you could actually be a millionaire or a multimillionaire? So based on the answer to that question, where are you holding yourself as the value of your beingness in regards to this as a tool? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think that speaks to the question that we've all, I'll only relate personally, but I'm telling you, if I never learned about this, I would probably be doing something totally different than I wouldn't be doing this call right now, obviously, right? But I've made a lot of decisions over the last years based on my feeling or my expectation that this is going to happen tomorrow, next week, this weekend. Yes, all right, Tuesday through Thursday, that's the window. Oh, no, it's the weekend. Oh, it's going to happen here. I think everyone who listens to this call and is on this call right now can identify a personal experience when something happened and you said, you know what, next week I'm going to be a millionaire, or maybe the week after that, but definitely within the next 60 days. And
right.
You've made decisions differently, right? And so we're all in a very unique situation right now where there's a lot of things. We have to make decisions. We have to, we're dealing with things and choices and that type of thing, which I think we probably wouldn't have made if we didn't know about this. So is it a blessing or a curse? That's an interesting subject. Huh?
Okay, so on that note.
All right, sorry on that note.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's talk about also. I'd like to introduce who we have on the call here in just a second. There's a word that I had never used before I got involved with this, and the word is intel. I had never been so associated with the word intel before in my life before I got involved in this process, this journey, this situation, right? And I bet most of the people on this call can relate to that, right?
Yep.
And what many people have done, and what we have done is we have glued ourselves and made decisions in our life, and this is what, Sean, you're talking about. We've made decisions in our life, day-to-day decisions, big-time decisions, big life decisions based on the intel that has come through. And one of the things that we have seen over the years is most of it has not panned out. And what we really want to also shine a light on is the disinformation. And what's really important at this time is we're dancing a fine line. We're dancing a fine line of we're creating reality as we engage with this, and we proactively are open to the possibility, probability, and then moving it into the vibration of creating reality. Okay? That's something I've been taught by my guides. And we also have a very strong energetic group that does not want this to see the light of day. And that's also what I've been told by my guides, is that once they got in under the hood and they were seeing how much deception is going on in this plane, this is something they didn't want to come to they don't want it to come to the light of day, because it changes the dynamic of their control on the planet, right?
Yep.
So the intel and the disinformation is something that we really need to, I don't mean to say need. My suggestion and invitation is that we unify to really shine a light on the disinformation and the intel. And why I said we're dancing a fine line is because, yes, we can claim it, we are meant to claim this. And we are also wanting to shine a light on what we have also seen as hopium versus evidence and confirmations in this dimension. Sean, do you want to take it from there?
Oh yeah. I mean, how many times have we heard the Admiral is going in? I don't even know how many people know who the Admiral is and what he's got to do with the GCR, right? How many times have we heard banks are ready, IMF is ready, the UST is ready, everything's ready. And you know what? This is what is very interesting, is that there is no shortage of information, highly detailed information, I should say, right?
Right.
What's going to happen and how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Week after week after week after week after week.
Year after year.
That's year after year. I didn't want to go that far. I was going to go month after month. But so that's probably what we want to start with, is why would there be a reason for disinformation? Is the disinformation coming from the bad guys? The bad guys don't want this to happen at all, right? So why would the bad guys put out detailed information just to build up hopium and whatever? Okay, maybe they might get a laugh out of it. But the real issue is let's take a broader perspective of what's really going on. This is a global event. Might it even be that some disinformation is coming from the actual architects and planners of the GCR?
If that's the case, why would it be?
Exactly. Yep. Well, we can shed some light on that tonight here on the All Things GCR Deb and Awake-In-3D show. We have to come up with a name for this.
I know.
Right? All right. So there's so much to talk about, and I know our 2 hours or whatever it is going to be is going to run out quick. But let's start. I like the way you let in, and let's start with all of this information, because I know many of you that are listening right now. And by the way, hello to all my S3 Gladiator friends and family out there. All right, I know a lot of you are listening,
and me as well. So we're doing a shout out. But at the same time, saying hello, we also want to say there is no division.
Nope.
Between groups.
Nope, there isn't. There is, in all information and in all providers of information in Dinar Land, there are kernels of truth. We can't dismiss everything just because we don't agree with what we hear or it doesn't make sense to us or something like that, right? And I think probably the good place to start tonight, because I can tell you how many people who are listening right now heard all of the intel. I'm doing the little things with my fingers in quotation marks. The intel that came out on Friday, I think it hit a lot of the public boards on Friday, but it was out earlier than that in the week, which is usually the way it works. that had an extremely detailed bullet point, and I think it's even in Zap's thingy tonight, in his update tonight. Point by point by point, all these things that are happening. But yet, those things were happening last Friday. But did they happen? No, because if they did, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So let's get into this. Why would this kind of detailed information come out that discusses so many different points, and yet, I mean, like to the point, everyone's funded, the money is there, it's all done, we're in the window, and it's starting. It's already, actually it started last week, which would have been a week and a half ago, and now but yet we're all still sitting. Well, I'm in the parking lot of a Wells Fargo. So let's bring on our first caller, and let's talk about what this means, because it actually is disheartening to a lot of people, and it has a deep emotional impact, and it makes people believe, Deb, that this thing isn't real. But I can tell you, on my road trip, I'll just share something that nobody knows right now. Part of my road trip, besides finding the world's best huevos rancheros this side of the Mexican border, is I have stopped into, and you don't even know this, Deb, I have personally visited over 106 banks since I left over a week ago.
Oh, my God, I didn't know that.
Pulled in the parking lot, walked in, told the tellers that I was moving into the area, looking to set up a bank account, blah, blah, blah. And then I got invited to go talk to the branch manager, and I would just talk it up, and then I would say, hey, listen, by the way, I've heard this thing about, a currency reset, and there's a lot of things going on with it. These were all tier. Now, actually, they weren't. A lot of them were regional banks, as I went from the Midwest down south all the way to, the panhandle of Florida, then across Louisiana into Texas, up into and many other, Oklahoma and a lot of other places, right? But I can tell you what, 80%, actually 81% of the banks I went into, I found an employee or a branch manager that knew about the currencies. So if I can do that, if I can go out and
I thought you were going to say the opposite.
Nope. If I can walk in and just by the way I talk and just by the way I say things, and I'm sorry, yes, I pretended to be somebody who I wasn't, and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is they all knew about it, 81%.
Wow.
And I found an employee.
Encouraging.
So tell me that this isn't real. If that's a microcosm of the thousands of bank branches that are out there, I'm talking about, Deb, employees that own Dinar and VND. I'm talking about people that actually, in some occasions, asked me to step outside for a cigarette and told me that they're not allowed to talk about it, and how did I know about it, and blah, blah, blah. And
wow.
So this is an incredible statistic. It blew me away because this was part of the reason why I wanted to hit the road. I'm talking about anywhere, like off the beaten path, just driving into small towns in Louisiana, driving into small towns in Alabama, driving into small towns in Missouri. Not Missouri. I didn't go through Missouri. Sorry, all you Missourians, but I love it. And Mississippi. And, well, of course, Texas, we would figure that, right? And so, and even in now, well, all right, I'm not going to say where I am. But it's incredible to me how many people know about this. So I'm telling you, either this is the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the planet, or it's absolutely real. So let's just put that to bed right now. This thing is real. I am proof. Well, you don't have to believe me, but in any case, it's incredible. I mean, the smallest town, I found somebody that knew about this in the banking industry. All right? So, okay.
Fantastic.
Then there's disinfo. Why so much disinformation? Let's move on to our call. We got to get this going.
Good. And we're I want to introduce her. And before I introduce her, one of the things why we've asked her to come on is because it is so important, and this is why I said we're dancing a fine line. It is so important that when information comes out it's juicy, it looks good, it feels good. But when somebody shares that they actually have information that information or is an intel is not factual, then it's important.
No, you're forgetting about it's confirmed. It's been confirmed from 3 sources, right? Yeah.
Okay, confirmed that it was factual or not factual.
And it turns out to not be factual.
Right. Okay, so all right. So let's introduce what we keep referring to her as her. So Sean, why don't you introduce her?
Why don't we bring her on and she can say her screen name or whatever she likes.
Well,
right?
we already talked to her about that. So
okay.
All right. So Jody, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. And so Jody, so thank you for being here. You also are known to some of the people in, let's refer to the Dinar Land people as Puzzles.
Correct.
Hello, Jody. How you doing?
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
I'm okay.
All right. So let's go. Deb, I'll let you guys take it away, and I'll just chime in like I always do. All right?
All right. Well, basically, this was the timing of all this was quite interesting. This has to do with the intel, quote unquote, that Sean referenced that came out on Friday. And one of the things that we are really committed to doing is shining a light on this lack of integrity that seems to be circulating, and the people that are putting it out. And I actually don't believe that most people are doing it intentionally or maliciously. So I just want to be really clear about that. But we need to take it to a whole nother level of being the willing participants that when a situation arises, and Jody, I'm just going to ask you to actually reflect upon what your experience has been in regards to, in the last 4 or 5 days, in regards to intel and then confirmations that you have that it's not necessarily accurate, and the chain of events. And I am so not interested in naming any names.
Right.
It's just shining a light and really holding a safe space for people to look at all the different perspectives and also the roles that they play and that each of us plays in regards to being the anchors where we really want transparency to rule, where we really want truth to rule. And if you, right? Okay, Sean, you want to jump in there?
But Deb, I'm going to take the slightly opposite side of that, and I will expound on why there would be a need for disinformation in an event such as this. All right? So
okay.
We want to get that going, but I also recognize that this has extreme emotional effects on people, especially people that are in incredibly challenging situations. And I know hundreds of people through my interactions online in Dinar Land and that kind of thing that are literally, hanging on by a thread. And so this is a very serious subject, and I don't mean to say because I'll take maybe the opposite opinion about the disinfo, but I think that's the purpose of this show. We want to get all of this out, and we want to discuss it. So, all right,
Okay, so, and I think that, and you chiming in with the perspective of why disinformation would be being put out it's definitely very important too, because people want to believe, right? We want to believe, and we also want to believe in that there's trustworthy stuff coming out.
I want to believe. That was my mantra over at Yeah, the other
right.
Side. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so and so the thing is, we need to become really smart bunnies, where we are going down that. It's so funny because I never would have said that, and the word that just came in was bunny. We need to be really smart bunnies to go down the rabbit hole, and this rabbit hole, because what we're doing in this rabbit hole is we are becoming awake, we're becoming aware, we're learning to have discernment, and we're also learning about the revaluation of ourselves and our currency that is our exchange of trade on the planet, at least for the moment.
Yep.
So
I believe that this whole thing is actually this journey that we've all been on in the GCR is teaching us about ourselves and how we react to different things. And because listen, I mean, this whole thing is huge. I mean, everyone says how their life is going to change after the RV when they exchange their currencies. But I would like to state that our lives changed the day we learned about the RV.
That's a very, very good point. Yes.
That's really where the big change in our lives happened. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because everything changed the day, no matter how you learned about it, but nothing was the same after that. And
very good point.
Ties into a lot of stuff, and so let's talk about disinformation or information that is put out and never seems to happen, and there's always a ton of information about what's going to happen or what has happened, but then there's never any information about why it didn't happen, right? That's, for me, as the searcher, seeker, researcher, and philosopher or whatever, I want to know why there's no information about why it didn't happen. Right? Everything goes blank. Whether you're listening to the call 3 days a week or whether you're reading on the boards, there's plenty of information about what's going to happen or what happened yesterday, and this was signed, and the Pope did this, and the Queen of England did that, and this guy did this, and these papers were signed, and blah, blah, blah. But then it doesn't happen, and there's nothing about why. Well, wait a minute. Why did everybody think, who's supposedly high level, that this was going to happen, and it didn't? What's going on here? Hence, this information. All right? So let's get into it.
So I really want to make sure, Puzzles, Jody, that you are comfortable, and I'm just going to ask you just to share from your experience, not just what has occurred over the last couple of days, but what you are seeing in order to further level the playing field, what you're experiencing from your perspective of this subject of intel, information, disinformation.
Okay. Well, I put a post today, and I got a lot of responses, which was not my intent. But apparently, because of the way I started the thread, I talked about how I had to take a step back last night. And I took a step back, and I decided I wasn't going to post anymore. And that's what I put out there today. That received a lot of feedback. The thing is, the feedback I received was under the assumption that people thought I felt attacked, which last night I did. But that wasn't my reason for my decision to back away.
Well, let's go back to, let's just pull back
First,
even
further. Wait, Deb, Jody.
Yep.
I need to preface this by stating that Puzzles has some pretty significant sources, all right?
That's exactly what I was going to,
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it doesn't get much deeper than some of the sources that she has or higher level. And I think this is the reason for kind of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
In trying to shine a light on some of the reality of what's going on. Everybody wants to hear hopium, and when you don't hear hopium, you kind of, it's almost like an attack instinct that comes out, right? And
Yep.
with a lot of people, and I've been there. I never talk about anything that I haven't gone through myself. And when I saw stuff like, oh, it's not going to happen, this is back in 2012, it's not going to happen until 2013. I'm like, who the F are you talking to, right?
Right.
Are you kidding me? This is not real. I mean, this is BS, and let's move along. All we want to hear. So I think what Puzzles Jody is going to say is very significant because we're all going through this. We all are.
Yep.
I don't care whether you're challenged in your life situation right now or whether you're comfortable and just waiting for this investment, quote unquote, to happen. This is a real issue, right? And what's going on? So, all right, please, Puzzle.
Well,
go on.
okay, so let's also, because I don't even know all the details, but what we're talking about is that here's a person, Jody, that has some very significant contacts, and that your intention is really just to have truth be out there. Is that? I don't want to paraphrase that.
No, absolutely. I'm
okay.
digging for truth, and so that's
right.
what gets to why I really backed away from wanting to share. It wasn't because of the attacks. It was because of the lack of progress I see. To me, the intel thread, as I understand it, and as
well, let's talk about which intel thread you're talking about, because a lot of people don't even know what we're talking about.
Sorry.
So we need to get specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm on S3G, S3 Gladiator site, and it's a great site. The administrators, did a great job, I think.
Okay, we all agree with that. And also the other thing, just sorry for jumping in here, but Sean, you just alluded that this same exact information has been put out by ZAP. So you can, if you just go on Rumor Mill or whatever and you look up ZAP, you can see what we're talking about. There's a very detailed list of information, right? I just want to make sure people know they can get access to it.
It's bullet pointed, and it's very detailed, and
right.
It's not the first time this kind of information has come out. But
right.
I think Puzzles, Jody, what you have is almost you had a revelation in the last few days, and it's caused you to step back, and I know you, right? We've known each other for a while here, and I was kind of shocked when you said you were going to step back because you were, we all want to be positive, but yet some things come to light that gives us all a reason to say, wait a minute, are we just really sheeple being led by all this hopium and what really is behind it? But I want to let you talk, all right, and then we can get into it and we can explore this issue because it's very deep. I mean, it's very, very deep
It is.
All right, go ahead.
So the reasons I decided to back away was, in retrospect, rereading everything that I went through rereading, what I see is the same information being rehashed over and over. Excuse me. Excuse me. And the rehashing is more of I'm seeing it as a boxing match. These people are saying this, and these people are the blind followers of these people, certain intel providers, and so they just jump on and they take a defensive stand.
Yep.
Regardless of whether the information is true or not, they defend the person. And this isn't about any one person.
Mm-hmm.
This is about information from everybody and putting it together to get to truth. So seeing that, I thought, well, what can I contribute? I'm not going to sit and fight the energies. I spend my time, and Sean, I know you know this about me. My time is going through private avenues, getting deeper information behind the scenes, and I go through agony trying to decipher from that what is true and what is not, because there's intentional disinformation that is thrown in, and I'm talking from top sources. So somebody could say, oh, I know the Admiral personally, or I know this person personally, and I know that this is truth. Well, I'm sorry to say that because that person said it doesn't make it truth. And I'm not saying that person's a liar or they're intentionally the one putting the disinfo out. I'm saying that it's being fed through the pathways.
Yep. Yeah,
and Jody, I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Good, Sean, go ahead, and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, I'll even add to that if anyone listening here does not believe that there are people that are actually have their jobs to put out this kind of information, meaning they're getting paid a nice salary for it, you're kidding yourself, because they are. All right?
Well,
and
that's something.
I'm not talking about shills that just come on the various websites and like negate everything that's said. I'm talking about very, professional type of. I mean, anybody who's been following me on the private side, I've been asking these questions for 6 months, and it's like, wait, this information is way too detailed. This is not just like rumors. This is stuff that's being put out there, and what we want to explore is why. What would be the reason? And it's not being put out by, I don't believe, the bad guys, right?
Right.
Okay, I have a question for Jody.
There's a big battle. There's a battle going on. Jody's exactly right? What's happening?
So Jody, is there something that is new in your from the resources that you have? Is there something new that has been shared with you in regards to the level of disinformation that is being put out?
Well, it's not really new. I mean, I've been told several times that there was, and I knew that there was. But what happened was, what I do is I have certain people that I can go to, and I'm very lucky because I have that, and I understand that.
Right.
I worked hard to get that. It wasn't handed to me. Believe me, I dug for years to get to people who could help me. And
right.
what I found was some people who could just ground me. They don't feed me intel. They just ground me. And what they do is I go through periods like everyone else where, I absolutely flip out because I'm sideswiped by something that's sent out. And it's
right.
contradictory to what I know to be true. And
right.
so what I do is I have certain grounding points that I know are true, and there's nothing that can shatter that. It's a given on this ride. And so if somebody disagrees with that or provides separate intel or they've heard something else, I know for a fact it is wrong. And so when I get some additional information about another topic, as I'm finding my way, through the path, trying to get to, understand timing and rollout, every so often when I go through this flip out, there are certain people I go to, and basically I lose it. I send them something like, what is this, or is this real, or am I off track, or I'm losing my mind, or whatever I put. And I'll get something back every so often, what I call a crumb of data, basically to put me back on track. This isn't true, or, something. And what I got this time when I did it, I sent some stuff out, and a lot of people will send me stuff to vet. And when I sent it out...
Can you share what you actually put out? What was it?
I'm trying to even remember. Honestly, I don't remember. Somebody sent me some intel, and a lot of it's private, so I really can't just put it out. But I don't even remember, to tell you the truth. I just know I sent the email, and I asked, is it true? And what I got back was, you really need to stop digging for intel, because there are, and I'm using different words than the person used, but basically there are, as Sean said, very high-level paid people put in place to put out this information, not to upset us, not to cause, this emotional churn that we do go through as a side effect, but because it's for the safety and security of all of us. And I knew that, but for whatever reason, the timing of it, along with everything else I was going through and information hearing from everybody else, it's like it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, God, I'm just churning and turning and chasing my tail. And I need to stop. And what it did was it gave me a higher level perspective seeing things. It's almost like when you're, the forest from the trees. If you're up higher, you can see it better. And it gave me that higher level perspective of seeing some of the stuff that I consider outright disinfo. And so
let me ask this,
what I want
Jody. Would you say that from the information you have that we are close to this event transpiring, at least in the first stages?
Oh, definitely. No doubt.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that as well. I have different sources than you, and actually I have some of the same as well.
Right.
And so what we're not here to say that the disinfo
it's not happening.
That it's not happening. I want to be clear on that. It's just that what many times we all as Dinarians or GCR people, investors invested in this event, don't realize is, I know it's said all the time, this is a global event and we all don't have information on why and what and that kind of thing. But this is a huge thing, and there are millions of us. I mean, millions. And nothing motivates people to come together more than issues of money, right? When there's money involved, people get involved, right? I mean, people don't vote on things that are critical to their future, all right? Apathy, they call it. But when it comes to money, what am I going to get, or what's in store for me or my investments? People come together, and this is a real issue for both the negative side of the GCR, the guys that stand the most to lose from this event, and from the guys that are trying to push this through and make this a real humanitarian change for the better on this planet. So, while I understand the emotional, heart-wrenching that this goes through, and the need for transparency, I also understand the need that if millions of people suddenly unify in a negative way around an event that's about to happen, that needs to happen in a certain way where the vast majority of people on the planet don't really understand what really just happened, right, when it does happen, and what it means, because all that will come out afterwards, right? But before this happens, it's like when two major companies are in merger talks, you just can't put out this kind of detailed information. You can't share what, all the investors, the shareholders, the stockholders, you can't put out what the discussions are around and what it's going to mean, who's going to buy which stock out for cash and shares and what's that, so if you're invested in a major company, you want to know, hey, wait, depending on what side of the deal I'm on, is my share going to go down or is it going to go up, right? That's what you want to know, and you want to know all this information, but yet the executives and the people that are putting the deal together, because of it could have major ramifications, people will lose money, people will gain money based on what comes out ahead of time. There's a very strong need for kind of deflection, right? And I see the GCR exactly that way. The GCR is much more monumental than two companies merging, right? And it's just that I guess we're all shocked when we get this kind of detailed, bullet-pointed information like what just came out Friday, and then we also find out that people that we trust that put out newsletters or whatever are quoting the same information, and it's like, wait a minute, is this real or is it not real, right? And
or is it just circulating the same information so people can actually keep their followings?
Right. Well, there's all that too. Yeah, that's a whole other subject, right? Which is why we strive here to not be censored, and we will not shy away from any subject or topic, because there's way too much of censorship and being banned from sites or being put in a penalty box or being blocked or cut off, and that's what this show is here.
That's where there's I have a mixed have a mix feeling on that, okay? As much as I believe and value that people have their own opinions, and I do, I understand there's a time and there's a place for it. And I don't agree with censoring reality. I know some sites, they don't want certain things on there for whatever reason, whether it's political or, it gets into religious stuff. And these things are going on globally. There will be changes beyond financial, right? We know that. There will be huge disclosure in every area of our life. The problem is, and I did this with people that I share with, because I share in private with my own team of people. And it got to a point where I couldn't filter the truth from the non-truth, and so I did put up rules. Certain posts or certain intel providers, I don't want to see their stuff. And I'll say outright, I do know that there are pieces or crumbs of truth in what they share. And what I choose to do is go on the side every so often, and I'll read the stuff, skim through it, and sometimes I'll actually pick something out and I'll share it, even though it's like a person that I don't want information on my own little area. But the reason I do it is because there is just so much disinfo versus truth. I have to weed that out and move on to things that are much more helpful in getting to truth.
I agree. You know why? Because then we become the very channels or vehicles to spread that information or disinformation, right?
Exactly.
And then and as soon as it doesn't happen, we all risk, and I've done it, in all of my posts, I'm very careful as to what I say and when and what. And I just put out a couple days ago that I don't think there's exchanges happening before Thanksgiving. Just forget about it, right? I want to be wrong. I really do. And I know there's information out just tonight that says, no way, it's going to happen this week. As a matter of fact, the plan is for it to happen before Thanksgiving. So, we all get caught up in sharing information, and then if it doesn't happen or it's wrong, then we become the very perpetrators of the information, the disinfo spreaders that we all disdain. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the with Jody, with your situation, because I know that you're only 1 in 100 people that have probably experienced this, right? You're just an example of others that have had the same experience. So one of the things that we're really trying to shine the light on here is for every person here engaging with this situation, this journey, this investment, however you want to refer to it as, that it's really our responsibility to be accountable to how we engage and interact with each other. And that it is, and to check and I refer to this as a spiritual teacher, I refer to being the conscious, objective observer of your experience of yourself, so that you can actually be the observer of who you are being in the world. And it's important for each of us to actually, before we post, before we react to something somebody has put out, that we really, this is where we become conscious. This is about consciousness, is that we take a moment and we respond rather than react, and that we are conscious about how it is that we engage, and that we also can identify within ourselves, am I reacting because this is information I don't want to hear, because it shoots me down, it sideswipes me, right? Or it reduces my hopium? Or is this something that I know is not true and it's not factual? So I think that there's so much fast engagement, and many people are caught up in the day-to-dayness of this, and we are intending, desiring, and hoping and creating that this is going to be, it's going to be revealed into our life, into our bank account any second now, right? And we've heard that now for, I'm going to say, the last couple years. It's been out there every day practically. This could happen any minute. So no wonder many people are sitting on the edge of their seats, pins and needles, and the slightest indication that is not, that's not true, creates a trigger, right?
Sure.
And a reaction. And so I think this is, and the reason that we ask you to come on here and to talk about this is so that we really can level this playing field. And when we are getting to know, as many people know who each other is, who each other are out there and posting and sharing and whatnot, that it's actually really important to also take a look at, well, okay, we know, Sean, you've done a lot more posting than I have. I don't post that kind of stuff. But the people that do know you, they know that you're sharing from a place of research as well as your intention of supporting people in knowing what's going on, right? And to keep people in the know that it's moving forward. We're not backtracking. We are moving forward, at least based on the information that you're getting from your sources, right?
Yep. Yeah, my sources are very grounded. I don't have, as others do, I do get information a lot from, let's say, call it the Admiral side or the Republic side or this type of thing. And, just because I've heard so much of this recycled and they just more details added each time, which makes you want to believe that maybe this is actually the time because this has got more detail than it did last week or the last time. But what I get my information and what I base it on is the reality of where is the money, who has it, where is it going, and is it going to, and when is it going to be real and liquid, like what I like to say, spendable liquidity for us, right? And the reason I'm saying that I don't believe any exchanges are going to happen before Thanksgiving, although I'll paraphrase, I want to be wrong, is because with my sources, boots on the ground, like we're waiting here and we've got all the currencies and we've been promised this is going to be $1 trillion transfer, but it hasn't happened yet. And to me, there's no way anybody else is going to exchange if those transfers have not happened. And you go even one step ahead of that or before that, are these transfers in new asset or gold-backed U.S. currency? And I speak of U.S. currency because most of us are here in the U.S., right? And or is it, what is that? Has that new currency, often referred to as the TRN or the USN? So what I just call it is a actual real currency, meaning it's got something behind it. It's not just a promissory note on the good faith of the government that it's worth something, right? Fiat currency. So is that happened? Has it moved? Do people that I know, and I know people that will know as soon as it's available in various bank accounts, all right? When they tell me that they're looking at the balance and it's been transferred and the high-level groups are going to go, which has to go, in my opinion, before it gets down to whether you're in G64, whether you're in Wells Fargo, whether you're in the Internet group, whether you're in TNT, I don't care. But before it gets down to that level, certain things have to happen, right? And until I hear that those things are actually real from my sources, and these are just guys that are watching and waiting and have the same invested interest as we all do, but they're just at a higher level, until I hear that they say, you know what, the money is at the various paymasters, and now it can be distributed out to G64, or it can be distributed out to the private placement groups, which will go first, and these kinds of, or the bonds, even I want to hear that an actual historic bond has been redeemed at liquid real value, then to me, I can hear every detailed, bullet-pointed, God knows what intel, but it's just rumor at that point. To me,
right,
being 3D, all right, and that's what I'm basing my intel on. And for all you listening, I'm telling you, it hasn't happened yet. All right, now today is Sunday. No banks are open. Tomorrow, we wait and see. All right, it can truly happen at any minute. But until I hear that there is actually the top-level funds been distributed, and I know it from the people that I trust, then I am not going to say this is happening, right? Regardless of how much disinfo, for whatever reason, comes out that this person has signed that paper and this has happened. I mean, I've heard 150 times that these papers have been signed. It's like, how many papers are there?
So you basically have your strong ground, right? Your strong ground, so you know how to weed everything else out beyond that. And that's what I'm saying. That's what everybody has to come to themselves. I have that for me too.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
So people,
all right.
please don't. Please, people, don't jump on every piece of hopium and say, yeah, baby, woo-hoo, woo-pow, whatever, and say, now it's going to happen. Because until you hear from sources that say, you know what, I know for a fact there's money in these banks that are going to be distributed, this is not going to happen for real tonight or tomorrow or Tuesday. All right? So I just want to, shed this reality. That doesn't mean that tomorrow I won't wake up to some, information from my guys that says, hey, you know what? We're gold. We're golden. We got money. It's going to be distributed, right? And that's when I'll do the woo-pow, woo-hoo, and all of that stuff, right?
Okay, and then on the energetic level of that, and because I'd like to support us in moving forward to also getting to the callers as well.
Yep.
On the energetic side of all of that it is absolutely imperative, and this is where there's a fine line dance between hopium versus creating the reality. It's important to continue having the intention and creating the energies that this is a done deal for humanity. But the other part of this is that it's also imperative that we each do our own work, and that to understand that this is far greater than just a revaluation of currencies, and that there's an energetics pattern of energy that is associated with each of us, anchoring within ourselves the revaluation of our own self-worth and self-wealth that will align us with that wealth so that we can be the chalice to receive this money. So that's on a whole nother level of the energetics aspect of this. Yep. So I just also want to say everything we're talking about, because the energy could be a real downer of what we're saying, okay? That, okay, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe there aren't going to be exchanges between now and Thanksgiving. And maybe there will be. But the point is that each of us becomes a discernment master, becomes masterful in discerning, because the entire planet right now is filled with an insidious cesspool of deception. And what we're doing is we are weeding through that deception so that we can anchor a new earth reality that really is based in truth and love and light and trust. And we need to shift our filters. And now, in order to move into that new earth reality with those tools, with that beingness. So it's important that so that's another reason why we're talking about this right now, is because there's going to be a tremendous amount of shifts. When this money does finally begin the distribution into even just to us as the first waivers of recipients, tremendous shifts on the planet. We cannot, and I know this was an Einstein quote, we cannot create we can't create a new earth reality from coming from the same consciousness. It's up to each of us. And so this tool of the revaluation of currents, this is a tool. It's a tool for us to engage with ourselves from another level of self-worth and self-value, as well as a tool for us to engage with humanity's evolution, the planet, and all the cleanup and all of the shifts and all the technology and everything that will now have a better chance of becoming visible and available that's been held back. So the situation that we're talking about right now is not to create any type of negative or be a downer about anything. It's just that there's that fine line dance of creating the reality of this, being the chalice, and then also having the discernment and giving people the space that actually do have the contacts to have the space to be honest and truthful. Is there anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll say for all of you more logical, scientific brainers out there, what Deb's talking about is just if you know about quantum physics, or even get the book at the bookstore or online, Quantum Physics for Dummies. All right, this stuff is that's the name of the book, right? It's the For Dummies series, Quantum Physics, and the bottom line is one of the most challenging things in evaluating and researching quantum mechanics is that scientists discover, and this is very underreported, but it's there if you read the papers and the scientific journals and things like that, is that the very intentions of the people performing the experiments in quantum mechanics and quantum physics, all the way out to CERN, right?
Yes.
In Switzerland, is that the very intentions or the expectations of the people performing the tests and the experiments changes the outcome every time of the experiment.
Absolutely.
So how can that be? This is a fact, people. This is not woo-woo, out there, whatever. There's a level of science where the very intention or the belief system of the people performing the experiments changes the outcome of the same experiment time after time after time, meaning there's no set outcome, which is why quantum physics cannot be quantified, right?
Exactly, right.
In traditional physics, because if you're talking about gravity, it's this. If you're talking about acceleration, it's this. If you're talking about mass and the coefficient of friction, it's this. There's a formula for that. We just pull it out and we use it. Quantum physics changes based on the expectation or the intention of the actual person performing it, which blows away. I mean, we have to rewrite all the science books. So what Deb is talking about and the energies that we're talking about and what Jody's talking about and what I know other people are thinking about, in this GCR, the very reactions and energies that we conduct, project, or are a conduit for, or we create, changes this event. It really does. We're talking about millions and millions of people, right?
Yep.
And so I just want to say, if you read a piece of information, you have a very high positive reaction to it, ask yourself why. All right? Do you know where that information came from? Do you know why? Do you know what it is? Is it different than the last? Or if you have a violent or angry reaction to it, like you don't want to hear it, what are you doing to this whole situation with that? All right? So we probably ought to move on and talk about groups and stuff like that, right?
That's exactly what I was just going to say. That is a perfect segue, because I actually have not been following groups since about 2012 personally. And I actually was appalled when you shared with me, Sean, a few weeks ago that the groups that are going on right now are not allowing, because I was like, all right, well, we're going to start this. We'll put it out there. I'm sure other, Dinar recaps, and they'll put the word out that we're going to do this call, this series of shows and whatnot. And I was actually appalled and mortified that what has come back is, or what you actually said, and then you got a few text messages today to actually confirm this, is that they're not allowing things like this kind of a call to be posted in your groups, in their groups. And
yep.
what people do not realize is how much you are shutting down the energy of this. We are talking about currency. We are talking about flow. We're talking about currency just like electromagnetic energy.
Yeah,
that's going to run
the reason it's called
currency,
it's all linked. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And when these groups, and if you guys are listening to this, and if you're in a group that wouldn't allow the posting of this call or other calls or whatever, or not just whatever, but other calls, let's just say, I'm going to really invite you to communicate with the moderators or the people who are the gatekeepers for this. Let's set the intention here, because we are a wave of energy. We are a people, a unified group of energy. And we are basically what my guides are referring to us as is we're part of the first wavers of beings on the planet that will bring through I'm being told right now, upper echelon of beings, that we're intended to be an upper echelon of beings of light, bringing forth the conscious evolution on the planet. And if we have egos and barriers being created in the 3D of things like not even putting out that there's a call of information from other people, I can't even stress enough how much that is shutting down the energies of the flow of this currency.
Yep.
Sean?
And who knows? Yeah. I can tell you right now, four sites banned the information about this call, right? For whatever reason.
Why?
I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to conjecture, but for every site out there that is for, of, and by Dinarians or currency investors in the RV GCR, why would anyone not want more information or a discussion or opinions about what's going on? I mean, we all listen to the calls of various calls that happen every week, and when one call comes up and says, hey, what's the deal with these Chinese elders? Or what's the deal with the TRN and what is that? And or wait a minute, I have a serious question. Where is the money coming from that is funding the trillions upon trillions upon trillions of U.S. dollars, if we want to use it in U.S. dollars, that's going to back this? And when you get an answer like, don't worry about it, it's all digital, it's just numbers on a screen, do you actually, and I'm talking to all you people, do you actually accept that? It's like, oh, don't worry, it's just digital. It's just going to be like, someone's going to just dial up 24 zeros, and it's just going to be there. Excuse me, this is fiat currency. Fiat currency is created from nothing and just zeros on a screen. But now we're in a global currency reset, which is all asset-backed. And when you ask the question, where is the money coming from that's funding, when we all go and exchange and we get $4, $6, $8 for a dinar, and if you believe it or not, up to $23 million for a single piece of paper issued by the Zimbabwe Central Bank. And, I mean, that's like, I can tell you, I have enough Zimbabwe to wallpaper my bloody apartment, all right?
Okay.
So are you really believing that all this, if that's just me, I mean, I only bought them for $4.50 back in the day. And, where is this money coming from? And if someone just dismisses you on a public call or a website and says you're stupid for even asking that question, or who does, or what is that, what kind of sense does that make? I'm sorry, but there is a reality. There is an economic factor going on. And that has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Because if you're telling me they're just going to create that out of digital zeros, out of nothing, and it's not going to, let's not even get into the economics of inflation. When you all of a sudden divide a currency into trillions upon trillions of new units, in the business world, that's called dilution of shareholder value, right? And in the economic consumer world, dare I use that word, that's called inflation. That means that the piece of currency that you're tendering for a gallon of milk is worth far less than it was last week if all of a sudden trillions upon trillions of new currency, our digits, are being added, and no one wants to talk about where the money is coming from. All right. Anyway, I got onto a rant there. Sorry.
You did. You did. Actually, Sean, you did actually do a rant there.
Yeah. Well, I'm passionate about this because
I know
we need to be asking these questions, and the answers need to come, right? So,
absolutely.
And they're there.
So,
and that's why we're here. We're going to talk about it.
Okay. So two things. One is just that. And I'm passionate about keeping the flow of energy moving, and that's why I really wanting to share that it's really important for us to have open transparency in regards to the groups and the different people that are sharing information and the calls and the different things like that. Because the other thing too is that we want the banks to be transparent. You know, we have the Basel III, which is being referred to as transparency in the bank. If we're not being transparent in the way that we are, the way that we're engaging with each other in this group of people that are aware of this GCR, then how can we expect the banks to actually be transparent? So there's a whole microcosm and there's a whole macrocosm that's playing out, and each of us plays a role in that. So you being a conduit in the microcosm are also creating the macrocosm. So if you are so that's why I was saying my invitation is you, whatever groups that you're involved with, raise a discussion that it's time for us to really integrate unification of the groups coming together and working together. And that is where we really unify this field and move together as a because we all want the same thing. I mean, we want this currency to flow and these collateral accounts to open. So I'm asking for you guys to really hold that presence and also to take action in the 3D with the different groups that you're in and saying, come on, you guys, let's really look at this on the spiritual, the esoteric aspect and call the group leaders and call them forth. Not making anybody wrong, because that's not what this is about. It's actually about opening their eyes, because maybe they don't even realize how much they're shutting the energies down. Maybe they don't even realize how much they're potentially coming from a place of ego and separation and division. But this is all about unification for us to really move to get through this as a group of humans, humanity moving together as one. Right?
Yep. We're not talking about lighting a match and burning the house down. What we're talking about is just having an open discussion so we who are on the front lines of this global currency reset, because we are all lucky to be here. We're very lucky to even have heard about it, and then beyond, forget luck. We made the choice to be involved in it by actually purchasing the currency. We made a physical choice. And so we need to have this discussion because we all need to be educated. All right? So why don't let's get to some callers and bring up some topics. All right?
So thank you, Jody, for being here if you're still on the line. I just wanted to close that out.
Thanks, Puzzle.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, so let's go to we've got the first. I'm just going to go down the line here, you guys.
Yeah. So what we want to do, Deb, is we want to try to get as many callers in as possible, right? And I know the topics are probably going to be diverse, But this is our inaugural show, so we're just going to kind of like canvas everything and have a few comments. But we'll get in future shows. We'll pick topics and go into that. So, yeah, let's callers, bring up your topic, ask a question, or form your opinion, and then we'll address it. And we may table it, or we may be able to answer it. But we want to move on and get as many callers in this first show as possible.
Okay. So the first one up. Oops, go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I'm in here now, hon. Area code 928. It would help if I unmuted you. There you go. Are you there, 928?
Yes.
Are you there?
She was there.
Oh, there we go. I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Okay. Get away from the football here. This is Lana
welcome
Lane.
to the show. Okay, good.
Hi.
Thank you. What's your first name?
Okay, my screen name is Lana Lane. I know Awake.
Oh, I know you. Hey, Lana. How you doing?
Hi, doing well. I've been taking notes. I have a lot of similarities, but I won't go through this and make this about me. I'll just ask a quick question. I've been taking notes here. The public versus private thing, sovereign contracts versus calling the 800 number versus walking in the bank. What slays me about some people that are involved in what they call the sovereign contract is that all you people, if you're not in your contract, if you're not in my group, nobody's going to exchange. And it's like, that is nonsense to me. That is nonsense to me, but I go through this. I've been in this for 5 years. I got in October 2010 also. And I just really, I'm upset with this since I found out about it, so it's my life, and I'm lucky that I'm in a position to do that. But it's what I have concluded is that they're both right. These people in the sovereign contracts doing whatever they're doing, they believe wholly what they're doing, and they really, I don't think, even understand what's going on the outside. But I believe that we will have access to 800 numbers, and I also believe that the sovereign contracts are a different deal. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Everything I say is my opinion because there's no way to. Well, I have some information on the sovereigns and that, but I just want to be clear that what I say is my opinion based on the information that I have, which is all any of us can talk about, right? Is based on the information we have, and we have to separate that from the disinformation. So here's my take on the various pundits that claim that if you're not in a group, you're not going to be able to exchange, all right? And let's break down the sovereigns versus the private placements versus the more broader groups like General 64 or G64, or who even knows what it's called anymore, right? So first and foremost, everyone should understand that this GCR is a humanitarian project, all right? It's a massive project, and its sole goal is not to make a few million people millionaires, all right? Many people say we're lucky to be here, or we weren't originally part of the plan. Well, we were not, all right? I wasn't, you weren't, all right? I believe that it's divine providence that we are a part of it, all right? And many plans of the architects had to change along the way because we all found out, right? And so, but in the beginning, so first and foremost, the humanitarian project. What is it designed to do? It's designed to free us from the fiat currency system, all right? That everything is based on debt. I mean, I don't have to say anything. Let's talk facts. Every country in the world owes some bank some money. I mean, let's talk about Greece. Let's talk about Italy. Let's talk about the United States. Let's talk about, the debt. It's like your economy is based on how good it is by how you manage your debt. And the debt just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The GCR is designed to get rid of that, okay? It's a change from if you don't know where money comes from, people, please look it up. Where does money come from, right? It's just created out of thin air, all right? The GCR will change that. That's why it's called a reset, all right? Well, we call it a reset, but it's called something else in the more official circles, all right? It's a retooling of the global economic system. So, being a retooling of the economic system and for humanitarian purposes, where does the term sovereign come in? The term sovereign can mean a nation, all right? Typically it's a nation. It can mean an individual as well, but we're not going to get into that right now about sovereign people and our rights and all of that type of thing and straw men and all of that. But let's just keep it at the GCR level, where the first and foremost is that sovereign nations need to become whole, all right? And by sovereign nations, we're also talking about the indigenous nations of every country that were completely decimated during the global, call it economic expansion or colonialism and that type of thing. That's really where all the damage was done, all right? So you have not only nations like Germany or Indonesia or Vietnam or the United States or whatever that are going to reclaim their sovereign right to control their own economies, taken away from the central banking system. But we're also talking about sovereign nations such as Native American Indians or indigenous tribes of all countries of the world. And I don't care whether you go from Japan, all right, or to China or all parts in between across early Europe, whether you're talking about, various, I'm not going to get into that. But there are nations that were severely damaged, wiped out, and made illegitimate on the global scene as a massive expansion of the banking-led system took over the planet, which it did, all right? And it is. We are all controlled by the banks. There's a reason why the tallest skyscrapers in every major city all have bank names on them, all right? So the sovereign contracts really are to start to repatriate or redeem or compensate various indigenous tribes and even groups of people, whether you want to get into the farmers' claims that go back in the United States to where, so many farmers were their properties were taken away by the banks and commercialized and given over to, God knows who, like Monsanto and everybody else. But, basically they were robbed, all right? So many sovereign nations and groups which have been affected over history, and the GCR being a primarily humanitarian effort is taking strides to equalize that and level the playing field and to reduce the debt-driven banking system. Now let's get to the groups. All right, there are absolutely groups out there that are based in, I'm only going to speak in United States terms, so international people, forgive me, but I really have specialty in my own country's affairs in this. There are many Native American Indian groups that are going to benefit tremendously from the GCR. They are all holding currencies, and many of the groups going back 5 years ago formed around sovereign nation groups. These were where the original rates of $23 per dinar came from. All right? That's where those rates were first put out in the information circles. And those are what's called a sovereign rate. So then you go below that to the various different private placement groups and things of that nature. The private placement group, what my definition of that is, I call it PPP. Some people think I'm referring to the prosperity packages and that, but those are different as well, and they're all interlinked. but let's just keep it simple. And the different nations, different sovereign groups, starts at a high level, gets disseminated. Money is taken from each transaction. Think of it as a, one of those champagne pyramids where you pour champagne into the top glass and then it overflows and fills up the next level, then fills up the next level below that, and finally everybody can partake. And that's exactly the way the currency is flowing in this global currency reset. It has to start at some higher level areas, and this gets into where the Admiral is and Michael Cottrell and other aspects of this. So to the people or the I don't know what to say, the pundits that claim that if you're not in a group, you're not going to benefit from this. All right, I understand both sides of that statement. What they refuse to say is they don't go into the details. They just say, well, if you're not in a group, I don't think you're going to benefit from this. Well, that's actually, I believe, true. All right. However, the depth where it relates to each and every one of us, depending on whether you're in a private placement, which means you've sent your currency in already, and it's been compiled, and counted, verified, validated, and it's sitting literally on pallets and in trucks all over the United States right now at various redemption centers, waiting for the TRN, right? So at that level, it flows down to the next level below that, eventually, which are countless other, hundreds of little groups. They can be church-related groups, anywhere where there's people that have pooled their money together, whether it be a internet group. When I say internet, I don't mean like the broader internet, like all of us on the chat boards, but whether it's church-related, a congregation, all bought dinar and they pooled it together and they had representatives go in and say, hey, I've got a congregation of currencies, and it's all counted and it's all packaged and it's all ready to go. Other groups, like the private placements, that currency has already been shipped in, a year ago, 6 months ago. It additionally increased as different currencies were added to the various parts of this. The most recent, whether it's the Zim or whatever, those were then collected or tabulated in some way. But by and large, I know there's going to be, my role here as a co-host is to either speak or say something that makes sense to you, or to say something that you disagree with completely, right? But my goal is to get you to think about it. And whether you disagree or you agree, you're thinking about it, and my goal has been achieved. Yeah, lucky me. So what we don't understand is that if you're involved in this investment, if you're listening to the various calls every week, if you're on a group or a website or something, and you're talking about this, there is a final level called, for lack of any term, the internet group. And that is a group. So when somebody says, if you're not in a group, you're not going to participate, you're not going to be allowed, you're not going to be able to benefit from the higher rates or what's going to happen when it goes public, right? They're saying the truth. Where the kind of what I disagree with is the lack of information given behind that to clarify what they mean by a group, because they always say, I can't talk about it. All right? Well, I can talk about it, right? So if you were, like I was telling somebody the other day, I think maybe Deb, it was you, in all of my travels over the years, I have given waiters, waitresses, bellmen at hotels or concierge, along with a regular tip in the local currency, I've given them 1,000 dinar note or a VND note or something like that. Just say, hey, keep this. It's going to be worth something. Just, don't forget about it. Now, that waitress or waiter who got a 1,000 dinar note, they have just, put it in a drawer, and like this crazy guy gave me this funny looking currency, and like, what am I supposed to do with this? Right? It's worth nothing. I looked it up. I saw the exchange rate. It's 11.65. I mean, that's nothing. He gave me a $1,000 note, and it's worthless to me in my local currency. All right? Those people who are not following the day-to-day activities of the GCR or the RV and don't understand that there's a contract rate, don't understand, are not, engaged in the process, that's what I define as the public. All right? So when somebody says, if you're not in a group, if you think you're going to do a public type of exchange, then I believe that's true. I believe that by the time the people that have a couple of notes or were gifted notes and don't care, don't follow it, don't have anybody keeping them up to date on it, by the time you you read about it on the Wall Street Journal or see it on CNBC, or there's some kind of vague announcement about, oh yeah, some currencies are changing values, and this is part of banking regulations and clamping down on derivatives or whatnot. It's just going to be technobabble to the average Joe Q public. And by the time they realize that, oh, by the way, I saw that the Iraqi dinar is now worth X, which is a lot more than it was however I got it and the time I got it, I don't believe that they're going to have access to the kind of rates that all of us here who are on this call and are listening to the replay are going to have. So by the very definition of a membership or a group, if you are part of an event and you have knowledge and you're involved in it, you are in a group. Now, does that mean that sovereign nations or sovereign groups under the sovereign contracts, are you going to get that rate? No. In my opinion, no way. I don't know. If you think you're going to get $22 or $28 for a dinar, all right, have at it, all right? But by the time that filters down, we will all be getting a large share of that bigger pie. But I believe that what I call the stock drawer currency holders, I believe that by the time this is public and out on the mainstream media, I believe the rates are going to be far different than when we get 800 numbers or when we are notified by our group leaders, if you're in a private placement, that we're exchanging. Those rates are going to be different simply because we're involved and we know about it and we had the wherewithal and we made choices to do things, whether to join a group or to register with G64 back in the day, or to sign up for a Dinar Recaps daily newsletter, or we check the bigger Dinar information sites. You will know about it. There is no way that an 800 number is going to come out and, in my opinion, without causing mass chaos, the very thing that the architects do not want to happen, is they're going to say, oh, yeah, here's an 800 number, but if you didn't happen to be around exactly at this time and send an email into this site or this place, don't even bother calling it because you're on the outside. You're not part of the group, all right? So I agree with you 100%, but I also agree that the public being defined as the sock drawer, I don't follow anything, I don't know anything, and I won't know anything until it's on CNBC or whatever. I believe the rates are going to be extremely different, and I believe this is what most of the people who are saying if you're not in a group, you're not going to be able to take advantage of these high rates. All right? That kind of shed some light on your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm going to yield and listen. And thank you very much.
Okay. Yep. I was thinking you were going to bring up NDAs and stuff like that. So, all right. Look, we can move on.
Thank you.
Let's go. Thank you very much for that call. Great question. I love it.
Okay, and that was great, Sean. That was very thorough. Thank you.
Our next
All right,
caller
Jennifer.
is, I'm sorry, Deb. Our next caller is from area code 310. Please give us your name and where you're calling from. Are you there?
Do you want to say also the last four numbers?
6062.
And they're unmuted?
Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey. Hello. So this is Christine from Los Angeles.
Hi,
Christine.
Hi. I want to make a quick comment, and then I have one question that should be pretty easy to answer fast. But my comment is 5-6 years ago, I used to get in these high-yield investment programs, which started waking me up to different ways of investing. And then this guy said the RV was locked and loaded, and if I sent in $30, I would get a huge return. Well, for me, fortunately, it didn't happen because I have a little bit more now. Not a lot, but enough. And I have also converted from being a consumer to project-based over the 5 to 6 years.
Awesome.
Right?
Good point. Very good. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, if this is really going to be worth what it's worth, we don't need an armored car to walk into the bank?
Okay, can you define that a little more or explain that a little more? We don't need an armored car to walk in.
Was that a question or a statement?
A question.
Yeah.
Question. If this stuff is millions, we're just going to walk down the street with it?
Yes. Okay. So, all right. I think I understand, and I think it's a good question. The first part of your question was, is this really going to be worth what it's worth? Well, that's relative, all right? So we've all heard all these different rates, right? So,
but it's going to be worth a lot. We all agree it's going to be worth a lot.
The bottom line is that there's going to be many thousands of percentage increase, right, in the value.
Right.
And as a follow-up to the previous question and the groups, it's going to be worth a lot for us that know about it, okay? So beyond that, I think what's a common misnomer that's used within Dinar Land is going to the banks. See, to most people, when I say, what do you mean by going to the bank, the first thing that comes to their mind is when I hear we're going to the bank, that, you know, we naturally gravitate towards this vision that we're going to walk into the bank where we deposit our paychecks or we make some transfers or we go in to ask for a loan and we're going to just walk in to the teller and say, I've got this $1,000,000 dinar and now I'd like to exchange it, please. All right?
We know it's going to be exchange centers with wealth managers.
Yes, there will be exchange centers, and unless you're in a very rural area, they're not going to be at like where I am right now, in the parking lot of a Wells Fargo branch, right? Somewhere in the Southwest United States, right? So there'll be nondescript areas, and you're just going to be walking in and out like any other person on any day. So the question about are you going to need an armored car, I don't believe in fear. Anyone who knows my postings and whatever, there's no fear here. It's like unless you want to walk in with a sign on your back that says, I'm holding 1,000,000 Iraqi dinar, right? You're just going to be walking into a nondescript building, and you're going to meet with people, and you're going to take care of your business, and you're going to be done. Now, when the public event happens, right? When I say public, I mean it's on CNBC that, there's this currency thing happening, and they're not going to say global currency reset. They're not going to say anything like that. They're going to talk about financial changes and what it means to the bond market and what it means to investors and what it means to central banking and whatever. And most people are going to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever he said, right? And that's the way it's designed to be. And so if you're a sock drawer holder, meaning part of the public, not part of Dinar Land, you're going to be able to walk into a teller and say, hey, someone gave me this 1,000 dinar note or this 5,000 VND note or whatever, and I saw it's worth something and I'd like to exchange it. And that'll be what's called a window transaction, right? I don't know what the rates are going to be then. I don't know what the rates will be at that level at that time, all right? And I am still on the fence whether the public announcements are going to come days or months after we all go in, and we meaning the very people that are listening to this call and you and on the boards and whatnot. We're going to be done we're going to be done. It's not going to be like you're going to see on CNBC one morning and that's the same day you get your email from G64, right, in my opinion, all right, based on the information that I have. So, yes, it is for those of us that are in Dinar Land, which I call the Internet group, right, because we all communicate basically over the Internet or via Twitter or whatever, and we all have this one subject near and dear to our hearts called the GCR, so we're part of a group where others of us are in other groups, which are likely going to get higher rates or lower rates, depending on what the nature of that group is and that type of thing. But it is going to be of significant value to us. It is going to be many thousands of % higher on a basket of, I don't know, I think the latest rumors now are it's 9 currencies in the first basket or 7. I don't remember which. But it's not just going to be the 3 that we all talk about. We all, or the 4th. There will be some others. And so, yes, and we're not going to need an armored car because you're just going to go in, calm, cool, and collected, and do your transaction, whether you made an appointment via an 800 number or you go to a website and there's information. But if you're following the boards like most of the people I know and talk to and associate with across various Dinar sites, there's no way on this planet you're not going to know about it within hours of it happening, right? And
right.
So, and this exclusion, is not going to happen. It's just a matter of the rates you get, I believe. That's depending on what you decided to get involved with. Remember the fear back in the day, don't send your currency in to anybody and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, there were people that were dishonest and putting things. I was part of some of those dishonest transactions, meaning I actually sent my currency to a few people, right? But I was learning just like any of us when we first got involved in this. And I
did reserves.
Yeah, I did reserves too, man. I was working those reserves on a
on a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen by next Saturday. Therefore, I've got to take a 14-day reserve out, where I don't have to, make a payment for 14 days, and I'm going to reserve 50 million VND or 500 million VND, right? So, yeah, it's going to be calm, cool, and collected. There's a lot of controversial, opposite information out there, which could be disinfo or not disinfo, whether it's all going to happen at the same time. But I do believe fundamentally when people in Dinar Land, whether it's the pundits or the other so-called gurus or whatever, most gurus don't consider themselves gurus, the honest ones anyway, when they say the public and when they say you're going to the bank, I think they're just kind of using a general statement. It really means you're going to get an appointment if you're listening to me right now, and it really means the public, meaning the public Dinar Land, meaning those people that are not in the super private placement groups where you've already signed NDAs, all right? A lot of us have signed NDAs already, which is why I always put out, why are you afraid of signing an NDA? All right? Do you even know what an NDA is? Have you gone on the Internet and looked up examples of NDAs? People think that an NDA somehow governs how you can spend your money, what you can do with your money, and that type of thing. Well, that's not an NDA. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It's only about disclosure. You can't talk about it. You can't say what rate you got. You can't say where you did it. You can't say who you did it with. And, otherwise you're in violation. I've signed hundreds of NDAs in my career, right? And nothing in an NDA talks about the nature of a business deal. All it talks about is you can't talk about the nature of the business deal, which is covered under another agreement, right? So that's all that is, and there are people that have signed NDAs already, and they're going to exchange, and they're part of a group. But when a lot of people say public, I think what they're really meaning is Dinar Land public, people that are following the GCR news. Not the public, meaning the guy, your neighbor down the street, right? That has no idea. That's not the public in Dinar Land context or protocols or whatever. So that remains.
Sean,
so, yep.
Do you want to go? Well, so you answered the question regarding the armored vehicle, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And the value. Yep.
Right. And so do you want to go on to, Christine, are you good?
I'm good. I'm still going to use caution and maybe have someone go with me.
Well, the other thing, too, that I would add to this is that it really also is about your personal, it's just, you also have to make your choices, too, what you're comfortable with. The other thing, too, is, I'm going to bring it back to energy and vibration. That if you're feeling fearful and you're feeling, now please take this with a grain of salt, because I'm not saying don't have somebody go with you if you're feeling uncomfortable. But the other thing to pay attention to also is your vibration, and are you actually engaging with this in this transaction with fear and trepidation? And pay attention to that. Be the objective observer of your experience, and identify. Then, if you are experiencing fear, now that does, and here's where's the distinction between discernment versus are you in fear and trepidation? Because there's one thing to be discerning and maybe taking somebody with you. That is your way of actually having having discernment. And are you engaging with this entire situation from a perspective of fear or trepidation? And if you are, then it's your opportunity to go to the source of that. What are you fearful about? What are your concerns? What's your trepidation? Do you know what I mean? And identify with that. So you basically can transmute it. Because we don't want to be walking around.
A source of strength, right?
Right, exactly. Because we don't want to be walking around being fearful. That's a thing too that we want to be talking about in this show more as well, is the engaging with this from a place of empowerment. Because I think this is a topic that for our next show that we talk about even more, is we have been living. Many people have been living in this enslavement matrix situation, been living in a survival and fear energy pattern, and there's the polarity of feeling empowered. And so this is a paradigm shift within yourself that this association with this wealth has to offer. But it has to be done first inside. You can't become empowered because you have money. The calling forth is for you to be empowered from within first, and then the money is the vibrational alignment with that.
It all starts with yourself. If you feel if you know yourself to be empowered and confident, and you know what you're doing, then the rest follows. after that.
Right.
It's not, it's a good point, Deb. It's not the money that empowers you, or, it's you that empowers yourself. So, feel free, bring somebody with you, and, that's fine. I've taken certain precautions myself in a different way, but, it's really no different if you're going into an exchange center than if you're a business person and you have really confidential documents about a big deal that's happening. I mean, that's valuable to a lot of people, right? So, but nobody knows, right? So,
well, and the other thing, and the other thing too is, and I think
if you look like you're afraid, then you'll actually attract that.
Exactly.
Right? You'll attract a reason to be fear. To
right.
be afraid, right? So,
I'm just talking about precautions. That's all. And there's several things already listed before of things you might want to do before and after.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a whole other topic. What do you do after the GCR, right?
Right.
Many people are concerned about bank bail-ins and all of this stuff. So we can talk about that, at a different point. There's so much to talk about, isn't there, huh?
It's so exciting.
Yep. Never forget, this is a big thing, and it is. We're all great to be here, and it's really empowering for all of us. So let's go forward with that.
Thank you, Christine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sean, we're 2 hours and 20 minutes into this. We definitely still have callers. So why don't we at least take a couple more? And
let's take a few more, and I'll promise to be more concise.
I would like to talk to someone good.
You must be telepathic. I was thinking that.
Yep. All right.
Okay,
next caller,
Jennifer.
Next caller.
Okay. Next caller is from it's an international caller. Are you there?
I am.
You have to say.
Adam. It's Adam over here in south of Western Australia.
Oh, hi, Adam.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I'm going very well, thank you.
Good. All right.
So,
Adam is somebody that I know. So, what would you like to talk about?
I've heard of the dinar mentioned on various different chat forums. Mine are more so from a gold and silver, precious metal sort of background side. I'm just curious as to how the banks that we've been led to believe and understand being behind the evil, if you like, are now going to be helping in the transition. That sort of concerns me a little, I suppose.
Okay.
Sean, do you want to jump in with that?
Yeah.
I have my own feelings about it.
All right, why don't you go first? All right.
Okay,
I'll think about being concise. All right. So.
Thanks, Sean.
For me personally, and I know this is something that I have thought about over the years, is that I think that because we're in this transition time, that it is important for us to be discerning and to be, for me, I'm going to just talk about for me personally, that to me, the banks are going to need to show me that I can trust them, and that the track record hasn't necessarily been so great, and that there's precaution that I'm going to be taking in regards to my involvement, how I approach this, with that utilizing them as a resource. The other thing too that I'm really holding in this space for this transition is that this is a transition that there's been a great deal of work in the global community in order for this to evolve to the place where it's actually seeing the light of day. And on a more, let's say, spiritual aspect, I'm really holding the space that this is calling forth for the transparency, for the honesty, the integrity that is necessary for those outlets and for the instruments that we call money to be utilized in a way that is full of integrity. Does that Does that answer, from my perspective, does that answer your question?
It does to a degree. I have the same, I suppose it's the healthy skepticism, but just that the banks, as you say, don't have a great track record. But I'm just curious myself, being in the, the mindset of precious metals and money backing things has been more my focus. That because I don't have Iraqi dinar, I'm going to sort of miss the boat. It seems to be a bit of a concern, I suppose.
Yep. All right.
Sean, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So my first thought is banks are like significant others. You can't live without them, but you can't shoot them either, right? So the bottom line is you can't transact large amounts of money without going through a bank. So you have to do it. I mean, there's just no way to move money around. And so at some level, we have to put our trust in the bank that we're going to be able to do what we want to do. All right? On the other side is that another thing to keep in mind is that banks are companies, and as all companies do, they're in business to make money, right? So you will become an important person to the bank, all right? And today, in today's reality, there are many people with many millions of dollars in banks personally and through trusts and foundations and personal accounts and things, and they're doing just fine. They're not getting ripped off on a daily basis and that type of thing. But the average person, being offered, ridiculous deals and, putting themselves further in debt, that's a bad track record, because all the banks are doing is they don't necessarily consider it evil. They just say, hey, we have the opportunity to sell this package, the instrument, and we're going to push it because we make money when we do it. And that's what it's really all about. Now, that being said, there are precautions. One is Basel III. A lot of people don't understand the Basel III regulations. First and foremost, it has nothing to do with currencies. All right? Basel III are banking regulations that deal with the relationship of their assets to their liabilities. All right? And Basel III is rewriting all of the ratios that they have to maintain in order to be less subjective to economic changes where literally they can close down and that type of thing. Now, the GCR, along with Basel III and quite a few other behind-the-scenes financial changes and regulations, are all moving towards more transparency. The bottom line is, the main point is banks investing in derivatives, very risky types of instruments, and things where if a minor change happens in the current fiat system, and I want to say that again, the current fiat system, it can literally bankrupt a bank overnight, right? We saw that in 2008, and we saw it in other occurrences over history. But the Basel III, along with the GCR and other arrangements, are going to dramatically change the way banks that are dealing with the general public, you and I, what they can do with that money that we entrust with them, because that's literally what we're doing, right? And so I wouldn't be overly concerned in terms of bank bail-ins, because the GCR is designed to actually stop all that from happening, in my opinion. I mean, it's not about global collapse of the banking system. It's about a repurposing of the banking system. And there's a big difference, right? Repurposing versus collapse or totally doing away with banks or how they do business and that type of thing. So I believe the banks will be safe. However, I myself personally, when this happens, I will be investing in gold and silver. Actually, I don't want to even say investing. I want to say I will be acquiring gold and silver as a certain percentage of my proceeds, just, for that just-in-case scenario. I think that's prudence. I think that's just wise prudence to do that. And I know a lot of multi-millionaires, and I know a few billionaires personally, and they all have holdings of precious metals and real estate, things that are tangible, right, that are not based on pieces of paper or digits in a bank. So I think we'd all be wise to investigate those types of actions. Now, I draw the line between buying precious metals as an investment, meaning I think it's going to go way up after the GCR. Like people are saying gold is going to go to $5,000 an ounce, $10,000 an ounce, and silver is going to go to $500 an ounce or more. I'm not going to acquire precious metals and other things with the purpose of them dramatically increasing in value in the future. I'm buying them or acquiring them specifically as a hedge against future, events that could disrupt normal banking systems or something like that. However, I will have a substantial amount of my proceeds at various banks with due diligence. I will make sure that they are not in the derivatives game. I've made sure that they are not, that my accounts are not being used in general retail loans and things of that nature. In other words, it's being, I'm going to ensure that my funds and the banks that I'm working with or dealing with are doing things like investing in infrastructure, using, because they're still going to, bank is in business to take your funds and turn around and loan it out to other people, right? Other businesses. I want to make sure that what my banks are involved in are infrastructure projects and things of that nature that actually help all of us and, build better cities, build more healthy systems and things of that nature. And you can get that information on banks. So I think you're exactly on target, in my opinion, in watching the metals market and acquiring that type of area. But I won't go as far as to say that I think shortly after the GCR, everything is, the banks are going to collapse and the doom and gloom kind of scenario, and we're all going to be bankrupt, right? And they're going to bail our money in, and all of this stuff that's going around, right? So otherwise, I wouldn't believe in a GCR, because if the GCR isn't going to change that at a fundamental level for humanity, then I don't know what the heck the GCR is all about. It would just totally undermine my entire beliefs, right, of what this is and what I know, right? So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, it's good. Some food for thought, Sean. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Adam, thank you so much. And you know what, Sean, I just want to also add to this too, is that I'd like to invite people to really identify with, I would say, I'll just say with Dinar Land, whatever, the people that are aware of the GCR, that we are the people that can, rather than being isolated, that when we decide to actually organize and get unified, that we are the ones that are to go to the banks, let's just say as an example, and say, look, we want to have a, what you said, it's like basically you cannot do business, we can't exist without the banks. We don't have an alternative right now other than the, let's see, there's like a few banks that you can deal with in gold and precious metals, et cetera, which actually is not a bad idea for us to have a show about that and what's available as alternatives. But the point I'm making is that when we decide to collectively unify, we can set and have the changes made that are necessary when enough of us actually organize to bring forth different transitions and utilize this situation and this group of people coming together as the changes for a new paradigm. So I just wanted to bring that forth too, because too many people are still sitting in the thought process that, well, they make the rules. No, but when we actually decide to get organized, we are the ones that actually can have change and make the shifts. we too many years we have been sitting in isolation and giving our power away to the deception and all the different things that have been going on, and I refer to you as like in the hidden hand. This is a big part of this, is for us to actually come together and to call forth the changes and the shifts that we want on the planet.
Yep. Perfect example, Deb. Back in my crazy sovereign man days, I went into a bank to open an account, and I refused to provide my Social Security number to open the account, and I literally, here is where, 99.9% is like, okay, I'll just give it to you. But we don't even ask why. Oh, well, that's just banking policy.
Yeah.
No, all right. Well, do you really need my Social Security number? Mm-hmm. And I made them literally get out their manuals and their books and show me where it says in banking regulations and whatever, where is it that I have to provide my Social Security number?
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually, now it takes guts and it takes stamina and it takes persistence. And I had to go to several banks. A couple banks said, no, I'm sorry, we just won't do this if you don't give us your Social Security number. But one bank did. And they said, and the guy across from me said, I didn't know this. We really don't. It's really more like a nice to have as opposed to a must have, right? And so we can make a difference. You just need to, I agree with you 1,000%. If they want our business, we don't have to accept everything. And when we're future wealthy people, trust me, you'll be able to meet with the senior execs of the banks and say, all right, what are you doing with my money? I want to know every detail. Please explain it all to me. I don't care how many hours it takes, but just take me through all of the stuff and tell me what, is in all this hundreds of pages of fine print that I'm supposed to sign and, blah, blah, blah. And they'll do it, right? And if you don't, they won't do it unless you ask them to do it. We do have the power to make that change or to dictate what happens.
And quite honestly, even for us doing this show, is that this is the beginning stages of us unifying to have the shifts on the planet that we actually want. Because so many people, I think, are sitting right now on the sidelines and they're thinking, well, somebody else is taking care of that. But no, we are the ones that really need to step up and to play ball. We need to unify and come together and to make those decisions. And that, I'm just going to say, that's one of the intentions of why I'm even doing this and why I am doing the show that I'm doing on my own, and really for empowering people, for all of us to step up at this time, because we really are in a transition on the planet.
Yeah, if we don't proactively engage in changing our future and managing our own lives at every level and realize that we have the power to decide and discern what we do, who we deal with and how we deal, and to ask the questions of all these institutions that we kind of think are, well, that's just the way it is, right? No, it's not the way it is. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, let's get in a few more callers.
Okay, Jennifer?
Okay, our next caller, another international caller, starting with 574. Oh, wait, we have Anonymous. Are you there? Anonymous?
Oh, you know what? That person probably won't even know that they are showing up without a number. They might be calling from, that's their caller information.
Okay, we'll just go to the next one. I keep thinking I hear someone. Do you hear him, Deb?
No.
Okay, Anonymous. Okay, our next caller is, we already have that one. I'm sorry.
How about area code 901?
There you are. No, I'm 574, but I'm in the United States.
Okay.
It just came through that they unmuted me, so.
Okay, honey. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Okay, my name is Becky, and I'm from Indiana. And I appreciate your call and all the information. You've kind of answered some questions along the way as you were discussing things back and forth, so I appreciate that. I do have a question, if you don't mind. I was going to ask about the sterling reserves, if you ever think that we may be able to get our money or be able to finish purchasing our reserve that we have out there. That's just one question. I have others. But what do you think about that?
I'll be quick on that one. I've never done business with sterling, so I would be remiss if I made any comments on that. I'm really not aware of because I've not had a reserve in the past or an active one when all the situation happened there. I've heard various people say that they've been contacted by sterling and told that they were good, and I've heard other people say they've never heard from them. So I'm sorry, but I really can't. I don't have a comment on that. I have no knowledge. All right.
Well, I did contact them, and they said that once this is over with the investigation, that they would honor that. But that's been months. That's been since June. So I'm not sure about that, but okay. So I'll.
You know what? Before we go on, I actually think it would be a really good idea for us, because I have a feeling there's a fair amount of people that are kind of out of pocket with that situation.
Okay.
I would really like, Sean, I think it would really be good, because we were talking about this before we even started the show, is, if there's anybody out there, and that's not for this show, maybe this is for next week, but if there's anyone out there that actually has information regarding sterling and legitimate information, this is where I think it would be really good for us to get somebody who can shed some light on this situation, because I have a feeling people are out of money. It's another lack of integrity situation around this whole GCR situation, and I'd really like to hold a space for us to get some very honest information and to support the people that are out in the cold with it, kind of thing. So, I'm just going to.
I have 30-day reserves with them. That for millions of dollars.
Right.
I
know you're not the only one, and I personally know a few people, and I actually just haven't had time to even look into it. So I think that, and I'm going to actually give an email address right now, because let me also just say this: the replays are going to be available for sure on my website, which is wakingupwithdeb.com. Then we're also going to make them available on YouTube, which you can access either through the website or just go straight to YouTube. Now, in regards to anybody that has information that would, two things. One is, if you've got information regarding sterling, will you please email that in? And I'm going to give an email address in just a second. And also, if you have questions that you want and topics that you want us to cover, will you please email that as well? And I think that we could open up the space too to have some experts on different different level, different areas of what we're talking about with all of this. I know when I got into this, I did just literally thousands of hours of research in regards to entities of to put the money into, and financial structuring and things like that. So if you guys have not done that yet, if you haven't done your research with that, even if you only have another 2 weeks, let's say, before any of this shifts or whatnot, then my suggestion is that you utilize this time very wisely, and that you really get your ducks in a row with all sorts of different things, and that's including privacy. One of the things that I've just done for the last 10 years, which has nothing to do with the GCR, is I don't use my home mailing address for anything. I have a private mailing address that everything is sent to. And if you haven't done even that one little minor thing, then I'm going to suggest you put that on your to-do list very soon. But I think, Sean, this is one of the things we can talk about is we're moving from being a public person to where the wealthy reside, which is they have a whole different perspective and mindset and a way of doing things and a beingness that they engage with. And not having your home address on anything, including bank records or anything, is like one of the 101s of moving from public to private, right?
101 is they all have trusts, right?
Right.
So they don't own anything, right? It's not in their name.
Exactly.
Yep,
so
I've done the
think
same.
It was,
yep.
Exactly. So I'm just going to put that out there that this is something that I think that we could bring some experts in about that and really support people that have not done, really done their homework with that, because this is definitely a beingness shift for a lot of people, and also a doingness shift in the way that you engage with your day-to-day life. Okay, so here's the email address.
Okay.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hold on one second. It's contact us at shiftishappeningtv.com. Now, I'm going to change it in the future, but for the moment, that's the most public email address that I can offer. So if you have information on Sterling, if you've got somebody that can step up to the plate and talk to us about that situation, if there's topics you'd like to cover, if there's questions, please email, and we're going to add.
If you have information, if anyone has information, about GCR topics that we're bringing up, that you have experience or people or that's what we want. That's the purpose of this show, is to engage in this discussion and get people out to say things that, there's not been a forum for, right? Because they get shut down or blacklisted when they try to talk about it in other places. Okay.
Okay. My second question, if you don't mind, is in regards to the fees that the banks might charge, and is there going to be taxes, federal taxes, state taxes on our exchanges?
All right. I'll handle this one, Deb.
Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to say what I know, what I'm pretty positive, and there's no way to be 100% sure until it actually happens. So that's the whole problem with this entire event, is we really won't know until it actually has happened, right? But yes, there will be taxes, federal taxes, all right? But there is a thing, and it's been talked about even in some of the most broadly listened to shows. I think the actual phrase international tax treaty slipped out one time on one of these calls that happens 3 days a week. And it's definitely been mentioned in many, many other areas, and I don't think people really understand what that is or get it. An international tax treaty means, and if you're an expatriate and an expat, as they're called, and you've moved and lived in different countries as a U.S. citizen, or if you're a European citizen or an Asian citizen and you've worked and lived in other countries, you get to take advantage of things called international tax treaties regarding your income and the way you can declare things and whatnot. And those tax treaties exist across the spectrum of sovereign nations, right? So you can live in one country, but you can be taxed differently than the actual citizens of that country, and vice versa. So those are called international tax treaties. They're part of, they're in the broader perspective of the UCC, which is the Universal Code Count. What is it? Anyway, UCC. I'm in the moment, and I can't remember all this. So, yeah, there's an international tax treaty, as I understand it, that is related to your the proceeds you get from your exchange. And to the best of my knowledge, that rate is 17.9%. All right?
Okay.
Flat across the board. all right? It's not tiered. It's not anything. So whether you have 10 million dinar or 1 million dinar, the rate will be the same. Now, the tax rate. Now, depending on which group you're in, however, if you're in a sovereign group like we talked about earlier, or if you're in a private placement group, that tax treaty is still there, but it may be handled a little bit differently. I could go into this, but I can't because then I'd be crossing the boundary of information I have. But, yeah, needless to say, the only question is, so the 17.9, I think everybody agrees with that knows anything about this, that actually is in a position to know about it. It also applies to the people that own the historic bonds and are redeeming those, which you hear about in the various land calls and things like that. What is not known is will there be any state or local level taxes involved? And what I hear is no, but that may depend on, if you're in the United States, I can only speak to that. That may depend on which state you live in, right? So just like there's different income taxes in different states and levels and all of that stuff. So, but the big information we want to know is, from the information I have, and, we won't know until it happens, I don't believe there's going to be at our level in Dinar Land when we exchange, I don't believe there's going to be a capital gains tax. And I know we can go into the code, and I've looked at the IRS code that deals with currency exchanges and all of that, so I don't need to hear that. But this is when an international tax treaty is enacted, all of those local codes and federal codes are trumped by an international tax treaty, right? So that's the way I understand that. And as far as fees at the bank, that was another question you had?
Right. Are they going to charge us like a percentage or something?
I can tell you that they're banks, and you should almost guarantee that it'll happen, right? Look, I can't walk in today and exchange euros for dollars or vice versa without being charged a fee. There's just no way, and you can't negotiate it, right? Now, that being said, that's me just taking in 500 euros or whatever and saying I want dollars, right? But when you're dealing with potentially millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, like was said on a call Friday, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So I plan on asking a lot of questions, right? Like, all right, so are you charging me a fee for this? Is there some kind of transaction fee? Oh, yes, that's right here. And all right, well, is there a way that we can reduce that fee or eliminate that fee via some other arrangement? Oh, yes. You should ask the question, but whether they're negotiable or not. But I believe there will be some kind of fee. I believe that the taxes will be taken out. They'll be included in the rate, and I believe that. And again, I'm not talking about the public. Let's please get this public versus private clear. When we go in as Dinar Land, if we make an appointment and we know about the GCR and we're part of this group or other groups, I believe the taxes will already be included in the rates we get, and you will receive a letter or a certificate, which you will then provide the IRS or your local tax authorities when you file taxes. That is your evidence that the taxes have already been levied on that income. And, that's what's called kind of like the clean and clear type of thing, meaning it's not taxable anymore. Okay?
Okay.
And the other thing, too, right, and the other thing, too, is, and Sean, you've already said this, but I'd like to just expand upon, we don't know what's going to happen until it happens, because who knows how many other changes are going to occur. There's so much stuff potentially happening behind the scenes. Who knows what other changes are going to be brought forth with all of this, right? So I think that's also why it's so important.
Yeah, those
to
are
be
the other
really,
agreements. Yeah, besides Basel III, those are the other things I was mentioning. Yep.
Right. And so that's actually, the thing I keep thinking is, and I've thought this for years, is we need to really have a very clear communication base for post or during the GCR situation, so that we can be sharing the information without breaking NDAs and things like that. But it's like so that people we're not like deer in headlights, that we are be able to create and circulate truthful information, create an information base that is educating people as we each are, going and doing what we are doing in order to engage with this.
Right, and let me just expand on that with the NDA, because there's so much confusion about this. All right, people think when they sign an NDA, it's like they can never do business or talk about their money or do anything because they sign an NDA. No, we can still gather, we can still talk about what we're going to do, we can still talk about how we're going to do things and share ideas and things like, I found out about this special tax thing, and all right, what we can't say is, I was a member of this group and we got this rate and this is who it was and this is how the bank we dealt with and this was, you can't disclose that type of detailed information. But you can talk about what you're going to do with your money and what you've learned all you want, all right? You just can't talk about the details of your particular transaction, right? So if you sign an NDA that says you can't talk about the rate, don't talk about the rate, all right? But you can say, hey, I've got $22 million in my bank, right? You can say that.
Right.
You just can't say how you got it, the particulars of where that came from. So I get so many private messages about the NDAs you wouldn't believe. So
I bet. Well, it's scary. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. We're almost at 3 hours. So what I would like to do is all the people that are still in the queue, you can even, if you want to email and the contact us email address, email me and let me know that you were in the queue. And then the next show call that we do, you guys will definitely be covered. And I'm pretty sure we're going to go to Q&A much sooner than we did even on this call.
This was this was our first show. Right? We kind of had to, wing it.
And
right, so.
And also there was a couple things just clarifying a few things right at the get-go. What I'm thinking, Sean, is I'd like to close this out with a either just like a kind of a guided meditation or just at least acknowledging that today is November 22nd and that this is the anniversary of somebody, JFK, that is very, very present in this field, first of all, because of for a couple reasons. One, because he very much was a stand for the for humanity and the gold-backed currencies and everything that were
defeating fiat.
Yes,
the fiat system.
Exactly. And the other part of that is that he's been communicating with me for 2 years. A bit over 2 years now. And for those of you that are hearing this for the first time, I'm starting to bring through transmissions and activations from JFK, which he's asked me to call him Jack, which is just, that's kind of odd because I was calling him John for many years. But in any case, he's very present in this field. He's very actively engaged from an energetic standpoint, and our trajectory of our reality very much changed when 52 years ago when he was removed from this plane. And it is part of us, part of this GCR is actually coming back into alignment with that reality, that timeline. And so I think it would be really good for us to end this call, this first show, on the perspective of the significance of what we are all holding a space for and what we're intending and what we're creating. So do you want to say anything about that? And I think what I'll do is I just like to kind of guide everybody into a visualizing.
No, I just think it is significant because even on on one of the regular Dinar calls that's very popular in Dinar Land last week, it was mentioned that the GCR goes back 52 years. Right. And that's all that was said. And I don't think many people got the fact that the person doing the call, the host, was actually referring to JFK, right? And he really did, right, do his best to, I consider him the founding father of the GCR, even though we can go back in time through the humanitarian matrix funds and the world global settlements and all of that. But JFK in our day, in our modern time, was really one of we wouldn't be here right now if he didn't do what he did, right? So, and we wouldn't be having this discussion, in my opinion. So,
yep.
All right.
Can I just real quickly ask you guys to give me the email address again for you?
Sure. It's contact us at shiftishappeningtv.com. And I'll probably have a different one. We'll set up a different one that is a little bit more
shorter.
Shorter. More. Wait. Maybe a more concise email.
Oh,
address,
Wait a second, Sean. You're the one saying something should be shorter.
Yeah. Well, all right. So. All right, yeah, but that email address will work, but also you can find the email address, I'm sure, right, if you go to wakingupwithdeb.com. It's right there.
Yeah,
Contact
it is.
us, right?
It is.
Yeah, please, I encourage
definitely.
everyone to send in emails with questions, whether you have a question, a comment, and also if you have information that you think would be relevant to our discussions, right? I mean, we're not asking anyone to disclose vital confidential, because I have a lot of confidential information that I won't discuss, right? And so do many others. But clearly, kind of the discussion we've had tonight doesn't violate any of those type of arrangements. But we really want to hear from you if you have information that is serious in nature and can be contributory to helping all of us here that are on this call and listening later and in future shows. All right? So I strongly encourage that.
Awesome. And so here's the thing. I've got activation energy that's coming through right now. And I'm just going to say what I'm going to be true to it, because it only comes through basically when it's being called forth. And if you are not interested in participating with this energy, then go ahead and just jump off now. What I will say is that, and Sean can attest to this, is that it is very potent, it's very powerful. Jack is very present right now, and I know what is going to come through is a focusing of each of us activating to be further aligned with the timeline of all of this being completed and moving back into, having the pendulum move back into alignment of this timeline. And so the other thing that I will also say is that when I bring this energy through, and this definitely is the esoteric aspect of this, my mouth moves very fast. It sounds very weird. And there is a very high probability that you will feel energy, you will feel viscerally, you will feel tingling. And what this begins is an alchemical transformation for you to further even activate as a human being, and aligned with your highest good as well as soul matrix destiny. So, Sean, before I get into this, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I just want to thank all the callers for contributing to tonight, and I truly believe that in the time we have left before all this happens for us at a tangible level for each of us in terms of, monetary gain or empowerment, that we want to continue this, and I hope it's been valuable to all the people that have listened and been on the call live tonight, and also the ones that are listening right now on the replay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, and thank you, Sean, too, for stepping forward and for wanting to do this. And like we said, this is the maiden voyage of this, and we'll get it even tighter and even more, maybe perhaps with some guests and things like that. And that this is our transition. This is not just about the GCR. This is us transitioning to this new Earth reality, to a new paradigm, and bringing together different projects and all sorts of different things. So this is just the beginning.
Yep. And my final comment is coming to you live from a Wells Fargo parking lot. There is no people inside. All right. So, all right. It's absolutely quiet, and the parking lot is dark. All right. So, all right.
Okay. So as you just come back into alignment or don't come back into, but just take a couple of deep breaths. And as you connect with that breath, that you also connect with the life force energy that breath is bringing to your physical vessel. And that as you connect through that breath, as you, at your own pace, take a couple more deep breaths, that you connect with your own source. And that as you connect with that source, that you're also identifying your heart. And if you know what your chakras are, that you actually identify with your heart chakra as an energy center. And that you also connect in with your inner stillness and your inner knowingness. And that as you do, that you also call forth your higher self. And as you open your heart, that you're opening your heart to your own self-love. And that as you open to your own self-love, and you're also opening to gratitude for yourself, that you're in the awareness that you, in that vibration and intention, are further opening yourself to be a chalice for this wealth. And that each of us is a vessel and a conduit for the energies of this global redistribution of wealth. And right now I'm just going to do a clearing of this field that you also can identify with as a multidimensional being, that you surround yourself with a golden sphere of light ignited with the great central sun. The intention of this clearing is to clear away any interference that might be attracted to you as you are further opening yourselves and you're activating your heart and this reality of this GCR being a done deal. We are in this together. And I'm calling forth for the assistance of the beings of light, specifically Saint Germain, Saint Augustine, Melchizedek, and even the Viking warriors to assist us and to assist the people that are choosing to be aligned with highest divine good and highest divine truth. With this GCR and all of the aspects that this will bring for humanity and for the evolution of humanity, and that this is a revolution of the heart, And then we're commanding that anything that is not in alignment with this, any obstructions, any interference, any projections, and even any ceremony or rituals or anything that has been created in any time-space continuums or timelines that is not in alignment for the highest divine good and highest divine truth of this being revealed for humanity, that all of it is to be neutralized and nullified, that it is to be dismantled and unbound. And that what we are calling forth at this time, in this timeline, that we stand as empowered beings of light, and that we are choosing to reclaim and to claim and to proclaim that this now is a timeline that is aligned with peace, love, prosperity, abundance, and that we are the ones that are making the difference in order for this to come forth. That as we proclaim it, that it is so. And that as we open our hearts, and each of you open your heart to the generosity of heart, to your heart of gold, and that we activate the vibrational frequencies that will align you further as a contributing element and a contributing being of light to this reality, to this new earth reality, to this new paradigm. And as you visualize your heart opening, and that your heart even being aligned in a vibration or being the vibration of gold, knowing that JFK is present in this field, and that we're coming back into an alignment of a timeline where all of this was already very close to being completed. And then on this day, 11/22, 52 years ago, that was shifted, and that we each now are claiming and proclaiming the reality that this is coming back into alignment. And as you take a couple of deep breaths, see yourself in this new reality, as well as all of the people around you that have chosen. It is a choice. All the people around you that have chosen for a new reality, seeing the shifts on the planet, seeing the banking industry changing, the way that you're engaging with the people in your life, that you are able now to fulfill your life's purpose and mission, that your projects are coming online because there's fulfillment not only energetically but also with the abundance and prosperity. So as we activate this vibrational field, seeing yourself in your daily activities with your heart's desires being fulfilled. Think of one thing right now that you know that you would be engaging with, and your heart would be activated, engaging with this as the GCR is completed. This is a revolution of the heart, bringing us back online. Also discarding disheartening experiences that have occurred along the way. This is important because many people are being flatlined in their hearts because of these disheartening experiences. So it's very much a very important part of this GCR is to bring your heart back online, to activate the codes and the frequencies of the electromagnetic energy of the heart being activated as the heart of gold, and also through the alchemical transformation of the frequencies of I am love, I am light, I am gratitude. Now, what I'm doing right now with this energy is I am focusing on heart chakra of the holographic field of anyone that is choosing right now in highest divine good and truth to be present with this. And there's an energy coming forth of the violet flame to transmute experiences that have been disheartened. So transmuting disheartening experiences and reallocating the energy and vibration to I am that I am. And proclaiming the revolution of heart through this. Intention, clearly set, path aligned, I am that I am, focusing on that one heart's desire, seeing yourself engaging and acting with the actions of that one heart's desire. The details. If it's a project, if it's a relationship, seeing the details, and being in gratitude for being in the receiving as a transitional leader and conduit, transitional conduit. Vibration of creation is being engaged now. Hold that heart's desire very clearly in your mind's eye and your heart. Seeing the intention of this rolling out in front of you, just as if a new road was being put out in front of you, being paved in front of you, and you're walking and engaging with the action, taking a breath every step of the way and engaging with the gratitude and the vibrations of I am love, I am light, I am gratitude. New tracks are being laid, timeline of alignment, new inroads are being created, seeing yourself engaging, all right, this is very gentle activation. I'd like to encourage you to use the email address too. If you've got questions, if you have things that you want to share, it is actually very, very, very common for things to start occurring, like dream experiences, things being revealed and shown. What's important is for you to actually continue engaging with the heart's desire that you're bringing forth right now, and that you're seeing this all post-GCR, and that this is not just you or the microcosm of this and the macrocosm of this entire global transition, and that you're seeing that you, as you play that out, as you engage with that vibration and everything that's been transmuted from disheartening experiences to being reallocated, to being of the activating of your heart and your heart coming back online in ways it may not have been for some time, that you are realizing and seeing that you are a spoke, and there are many spokes. Each of us is a spoke as we are in this wheel, this unified field, and that we are now laying the tracks and the inroads of this new earth reality. Closing the field right now, and also still holding the intention as you go into the rest of your day, or if you go into the rest of your night and the days ahead, that you are holding the intention to have the obstructions to be completely cleared out of the field, transmuted, and also dismantled and unbound, and that you're holding the intention of all of this moving forward with grace and ease, and so it is. And as you take a couple of deep breaths right now, that you align with that breath and the life force energy that you are breathing through that breath and your heart chakra, your heart's desires, and the heart's desires on a global scale. And that as we each engage with our heart's desires, with this GCR being a done deal, that the macrocosm is also going to be very, very much affected. This is a wave of energy right now that is going out to hundreds, and then thousands, and then millions, and then billions. And then it starts here. Okay, until we are together again, thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and to everyone that has participated live, as well as engaging with the replay. The website where all this can be, the website that all this can be referenced is wakingupwithdeb.com, and then the email address for the moment is contact us at shifthappeningtv.com. I'm Deb, Deborah Pietsch, and Sean is Sean Awake-In-3D. And it is with the highest vibration and intention that we bring this forth with grace and ease. Sorry, Sean, did you want to say goodbye?
No, I just said thanks, everyone, and goodbye.
Okay. All right, much love. Bye-bye. Okay, wait, Sean, I'm sorry to stop you.
Yeah.
I screwed up. I didn't start the recording till just now. So let's start over.
Okay.
I'm
yes,
so
this
sorry
is live.
about that.
We are live. Live is fine. All right, go ahead.
We're live,
it's recording
and
now.
today is November 22nd, 2015 in the U.S. If you're in the U.S., I'm Deb. I'm Deborah Pietsch, and this is also who you were just hearing is Sean, also known as Awake-In-3D. You want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
And the intention that we are bringing forth with this call, and which will eventually, I believe, turn into a show more than just a call, but just setting the intention here and being very clear about what we are intending to bring forth. That the intention in Dinar Land is for us to unify, is for us to bring through transparency, to really anchor from a place of and a perspective of truth, that we're also shining the light on a lot of this disinformation and the lack of integrity, so that we really can claim this reality of this global currency reset. So no matter how long you've been involved in this journey, or this roller coaster, whatever you want to refer to it as, the global currency reset, which is really what many of us are referring to it as now, is really a very important part of our new earth reality coming into alignment. And so as you participate on this call, this show, that you're really engaging from a perspective of intention, and that your intention is to further align yourself as an anchor of the vibration of wealth being distributed across the planet, so that it's no longer held in what many refer to as the 1% percenters, but that we are the vibration of the wealth for it to be distributed, and that we're part of the conduit and the catalyst for that to come into alignment. So we have a lot that we want to talk about. We've got a special guest that's coming on as well. We are going to open up the line for Q&A. I do want to just say a couple of housekeeping things, is that yes, this is being recorded. We started a little bit late, so we're restarting the intro here. And also that if you come on for the Q&A, if you are calling in, that you don't use your last name, just use your first name. And that we really are coming from a perspective that we're in this together, and that we're here to create a unified field, and that this is a no-holds-barred conversation, and that we're really holding that this vibration for this GCR, especially today being November 22nd, which is the 52nd anniversary of JFK's crossing from this dimension, this plane. That's another thing that we're going to talk about, is really getting us back into alignment with the reality, the trajectory of the reality that being of light was holding for us and for humanity. So without any further ado, I really want to have Sean jump in here. Sean, please share again where you are very serendipitously in the parking lot of a
Wells Fargo bank.
And unexpectedly.
Right next to a Burger King. Yeah, this is where I pulled over to do the show on my monumentous road trip that's going live as we speak. But I didn't intend, I was going to be at a nice resort kind of place, but I ended up here through a serendipitous chain of events. So anyway, that's good enough. All right, should we get started, Deb?
Yeah, and the one thing that I was saying to Sean, just to share here, is we talked just a few minutes before we actually started the show, and I just said, okay, as you're doing this, since you're in front of a Wells Fargo, and I'm going to ask everybody to visualize this as well, and really not just visualize it, but activate it. Activate that Wells Fargo bank. I mean, the Wells Fargo has been for this journey, the Wells Fargo bank has really been the lead bank that we all keep hearing about, right? So,
big time. Yep.
So let's activate that Wells Fargo and the chain of Wells Fargos across the country for this to be revealed through. All right, so Sean, let's rock and roll. Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, look, I'll kind of set the tone here a little bit, and I want to stress that this is a completely unscripted show. We do hope that this show will become a regular thing. We're gonna gauge how this goes tonight, and also what happens with the replay. Which I expect will get around Dinar Land pretty fast, because we're going to talk about some pretty interesting things, and I don't know what we're going to talk about exactly. I've got some bullet points here, but this is a show for all of you that are listening, all of you that are hearing this recording right now on a playback, to in essence allow open questions about the GCR, about the RV, about everything connected to it, and get it out, and let's have a discussion and GCR. Let's call it the good guys versus the bad guys, the implications of the fiat currency extinction event. That's what we're talking about here, the extinction of fiat currency. And if anyone's done any research at all, even for 20 minutes on fiat currency and what it means in global economics, we all know it is a non-sustainable end event, right? And we're on it right now. That's hence the entire reason for the global currency reset. We want to talk about the freedom from the bonds of financial slavery, right? The debt system, everything you read. I don't care. You watch CNBC, you watch the financial news channels, you read the Wall Street Journal. Everything is centered around debt. It's almost like debt, debt's a good thing. Is it? Are you a FICO score, people? I'm not, all right? I don't give a rat's butt about my FICO score. That's the truth. And if you saw it, you would know that I'm telling the truth. So, but just think about a society that bases its part of its value on what your credit score is by how much you can borrow or that. I mean, all right, I'm going off tangent here. So anyway, and then also this show is about talking about end of the manipulations and lies that we all live through daily from both governmental and commercial / corporate entities that see us all merely as chattel, pawns, and the word I really disdain, consumers. All right? Yes, I'm a consumer. Yeah. All right, so to the audience, to people listening, and to people coming on future shows, if you're listening to the replay, if you have information regarding any of the subjects I've just mentioned, if you just have been looking for a way to get out and talk about it, even if you think it's completely off base, or if it's very true and factual. There's a lot of fact, actually, in some of the crazier stuff out there in this GCR. This is the show for you. Get on the line, call us, and Deb, you're going to need to keep saying the number. Well, actually, it doesn't matter because you're already listening. You know the number.
Well,
right?
actually,
right,
what it is, if you've called in, the way to get into the Q&A queue is by doing *6 on your phone, and we have the Q&A open right now. So you can. There's only a couple people in there right now, so please go ahead and get into the queue if you're interested in participating with question or any engagement. One of the things, Sean, I wanted to back.
Opinions. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I just wanted to backtrack just a tad, because you shared a little bit about your background in regards to how in getting into this. And I have a very different experience of how I found out about it, which I don't think I've ever even shared this, but I just thought I'll just quickly share at this point. And for those of you that haven't seen any of my shows, Wake Up Shift is Happening, or listened to any of the other calls, or don't know anything about my background, actually my background is award-winning producer in the entertainment industry turned spiritual teacher. So when Sean starts talking about esoteric and spiritual, that has become very much my forte because of the telepathic communication that I engage with, and then the details of confirmations and evidence that appear and that I demand basically in this dimension. And so for me, how I actually found out about this was back in it was June of 2010, and I was living up in Ashland, Oregon at the time, completely out of the entertainment industry and shifting gears a bit, and I was being taught by my guides, and you guys will hear me refer to my guides. And this is beings such as Saint Germain and Metatron and others. But for the moment, I refer to them as guides. And I get very, very detailed information. Sean, you have been on the other end of that at least a dozen or more times, correct?
Yep, correct. Yes, I have. Very powerful stuff. I mean, I'm a natural-born 3D skeptic, if you will, right? And I got to say, you blew my mind with some of the things, which is why I'm really happy that we kind of have both sides here, right? I mean, I'm all about talking in economics, talking about who's doing what, talking about the IMF, talking about what's going on globally, who is the admiral, who's Michael Cottrell, who are the elders, what's the goal back, where is the money coming from to fund the GCR, who are the groups, how are the groups structured from, the best that anybody can put together, that kind of stuff. And then on the other side, which I firmly believe in, is there is a much broader picture to this GCR. This GCR is just the beginning. This is a catalyst, if you will, for humanity in general, right? And that's why I bring up the freedom from debt slavery and the fiat system, because it really is a system that goes back all the way to the Sumerian days, right? Pre-Egyptian type of cultures. The banking system was formed, and it used to be called the usury.
Has absolutely nothing to do with our FICA rating or what we have in the bank or don't have in the bank. So, or the assets, right? Yeah.
I think that's an amazing point, is that we all say the RV every day, right? And we're waiting for the RV. And what I believe is that what's really happening is what's being reevaluated is our awareness and our own, self opinions or the view of ourselves. We're revaluing ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and the vehicle could be the currency, right? I mean, let's face it, money brings a lot of things in this 3D world and all that, but what this RV is all about, it's not an RV of currencies. It's an RV of the human soul, the human spirit, and us remembering who we are and reclaiming our power. So
absolutely.
This is what I love, Deb. You know, your sharing of how you learned about the GCR, or at least the RV of the Dinar, mine, you know, being more multidimensional, mine very 3D. Right? I was sitting in first class on a 747 flying into Vietnam on business, and the guy next to me was a senior member of Vietnamese government. And we got to talking, and at the end we became friends. And he told me, you might want to buy some VND. And I go, well, I'm getting VND as soon as I land because, you know, I'm going to be in Vietnam for about a week and a half. And he's like, no, you may want to. And I go, what do you mean? And he told me that there is stuff going on with the Vietnamese currency that will be very, very attractive. And he said, especially for people outside of Vietnam who own the currency, right? Because this brings up another issue I'm sure we'll talk about either tonight or in other shows, is how is it that the people of Vietnam or Iraq are going to all of a sudden have a currency that's worth all of these in a certain value of U.S. dollars, which basically means, I mean, I don't know how many people have been to Vietnam or whatever, but the average Vietnamese on the street will have 25 or 100,000 VND, right? And if all of a sudden the VND is going to be valued at some rate of 79 cents through $2, all right, what does that mean? An entire nation of people are suddenly going to have hundreds of thousands of U.S. dollars worth of value in their pocket, right, that they would normally go and buy a DVD with? So how does that even work economically, right? You've got all these people that are all of a sudden fabulously wealthy. What it means is, what, are we going to stay in our country, or we're going to want to, like, go somewhere else, right? I mean, this is what this show is about. We want to learn and discuss the real things that people aren't talking about, you know, on the more public Dinar sites and things like that. So this is why I think that, you know, I've learned about it through a very specific kind of, call it business travel, if you will. And
right.
I said, you know,
completely different than what I got.
Yeah. but this is the thing. You got the same message about the same issue, which tells me in my logical 3D brain that there is more to this than just my side of it or the kind of practical, economic, financial, you know, type of aspect versus if this is going on esoterically and this information is out there, that must mean if one is true, the other must be partly true or partially true from both sides, either on the 3D side or the multidimensional side, and what it means for us as spiritual beings and things like that.
And for the evolution of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we ought to move on to some. We should probably move on, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And,
we okay, so we actually have people in the queue, and then
this ain't about me talking or you, right? It's about everybody who's listening here.
Yes.
Yep.
And the other thing too is that what we've just given is kind of an overview, and what we want to do is start to go, well, one of the things that I experienced when I started to research, and I have a feeling a lot of you can relate to this, is it was my awakening to what Sean is referring to as like the debt matrix, the debt enslavement. I went down the rabbit hole. When I first learned about this, I went down that rabbit hole and started researching and wanted to understand what were they talking about regarding fiat currency. What was this? So I went down that rabbit hole. If you have not gone down that rabbit hole, my suggestion is that you actually start. And where we
absolutely
right? Because it's absolutely imperative for you to understand why this GCR is so important for the planet, for humanity, and how we have viewed ourselves. And here's a question because we have our caller, we have our guest that I'd like to go, I think it would be good for us to actually go down that rabbit hole of why we even asked this person to be on the call tonight. But one of the things I'd like to just invite you to ask yourself, if you had not heard about this GCR, if you didn't know about the revaluation.
Bring some information that really can't be, let's say is not being shared in some of the more open forums, or being censored, if you will, or clamped down or gagged or whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not going to divulge secrets here that are going to jeopardize anything. That's not the purpose of this call. There is a level of secrecy that must be maintained. I have quite a bit of information that there is no way I can put out. It would be irresponsible of me to do that. Being a former executive and entrepreneur and all that, there is a reason why some things cannot be revealed and made public, even if it is in a contained Dinar Land type of area. But I'm going to share some pretty interesting things tonight, and I hope and want, actually I don't hope, I don't believe in the word hope. I expect and want people to call in and ask questions, because that's how we're going to get this thing engaged. So let me just kick this off a little bit. My screen name on many boards is Awake-In-3D across Dinar Land. In the chat rooms and websites or whatnot, if you haven't heard from me in a while, I used to be hosted a lot about a year ago, going back from there, but I've gone underground in the last year or so. Basically, I wanted to dig deep into all the things in this universal event that we all call collectively the global currency reset, and even the bigger picture beyond that, because there is many more things coming, and we'll talk about those in future shows. And I am a part-time researcher, part-time alchemist, and for those of you that know what an alchemist is, got nothing to do with turning lead into gold, baby. I'm a part technologist. I have a lot of experience in business in technologies, nano technologies, particles, fluidics, different things like that. Business executive, entrepreneur. I'm also very much into esoteric, spiritual, truth-seeking type of engagements anywhere it takes me around the world. I've been blessed enough to be able to travel to over 50 countries around the world, and that's actually my travels that led me to the information of the GCR, the RV. It didn't come to me by someone saying, hey, look, you ought to buy this currency. I actually learned about it through a vastly different path. So tonight I'm your co-host in this inaugural first show along with Deb Pietsch, and this is going to be a series of caller-driven, I want to stress that, caller-driven radio, like a radio-like show where we're going to explore all things GCR, global currency reset related. So it's important that you call in and you get what's on your mind out, all right? And that's how it's going to lead to all of the people that are listening now and all the people that are going to be listening throughout this coming week on the replay, answering questions or getting information that they wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. So with your help, this can become an important vehicle, and that we're really endeavoring here in this forum to discuss and put the pieces together of this vastly complex, confusing, and very mysterious event in our lifetimes, which we call the global currency reset. So if you have questions about this life-altering epic event, I'm talking Cecil B. DeMille kind of epic event, this is the place to be, right here, right now, on future calls. Let's get this thing going. What we want to discuss are subjects such as economics. I mean, I can talk hard economics all day long. Financial architecture, and the various entities involved. We want to discuss exchange groups. Everyone wants to talk about groups. Who's in a group? What's in a group? What's a group? Are we in a group? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Actually, I think I do know. And the what's and whys and the possible structures of these groups. But again, without audience participation, we're not going to get too far because I don't want to listen to myself talk. Yeah, I can listen to Deb talk, but certainly not me. We want to explore, what do I want to say, the more so-called conspiracy side of this event involving the planners, the players, the architects, all right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the background and even in some of the chat rooms about that. We want to delve into the bigger picture in terms of the human and the spiritual aspect of the GCR, in terms of the energies, the emotions. I think, if anything, we can all identify with in this multi-year, I don't care if you've been in it for 6 months or if you've been in it for 9 years like I have from the beginning. I think we all have had tremendous emotional reactions, changes to everything that's been going on throughout this event. I want to talk about the spiritual and emotional sides as well, both before the GCR and after the exchanges, because there's a lot coming after. So
a lot.
And finally, I think, Deb, what we want to also dig into is the so-called I don't want to say conspiracy, but the more out there side of the GCR system, which is the form of charging interest, loaning money to others and then collecting interest, which became a business in and of itself, which leads to the money changers in the Bible and all of these types of things. So I'm really, I'm honored to be here and co-hosting this with you, Deb, because, I really think this show is going to bring a lot of different aspects and different perspectives on what's really going on. This isn't just a currency being revalued and you're going to go into an exchange center or later on when the public thing happens. And we'll talk about public versus private. Are you private people or are you public? You think you're going to
And what's the
publicly?
value in going public to private?
And what's going to be the value of your currency when this GCR goes public? Have you ever thought about when the TRN comes out and the United States dollar is gold backed? Is that going to be useless or worthless? That's what's going on in the public. And let's get this kind of stuff out there because we all need to know about this and be educated from all aspects of this. And, Deb, I think you're way above me. I'm in 3D, which is why my screen name on a lot of the sites is Awake-In-3D. I am awake, but I am very 3D. And you're where I'm trying to get, right? 5D and above or whatever we want to say, right? So,
okay. So the one thing that I just wanted to share in regards to how I found out about this, because it was not 3D. I'm like the person that people would talk about, like the goes into a cave and for several years, and I spent several years, a lot of my time out of LA and in Mount Shasta and Ashland, Oregon, very isolated from regular life while I was basically being taught by my guides and honing in my telepathic communication, as well as becoming an activator. But here's the interesting thing, and where we, just you and I, bring forth a difference here in this field. I was actually being told by my guides back in June of 2010 when I was really trying to manifest a great deal of wealth to bring forth a humanitarian project. And what was actually figured out at that time was that there was a tremendous amount of infiltration, and every time I got close to manifesting that money, there was infiltration, and I mean major infiltration, where it was showing up in this dimension in ways that were crazy. And what my guide said was, go back to LA, everything's going to change after 10-10-10. The money will now be dispersed after the gateway of 10-10-10. So I went back to LA. At the end of July, I arrived back in LA, and I started on working with different clients and projects. And it was mid-November that I had a client that came to me for to work with me for branding and for her website, because I also used to do have an agency and do web development and internet strategies. And it was with her that I heard the word dinar for the very first time. So it was literally 2 weeks. It was about 2 to 3 weeks after this 10-10-10 gateway. Now, what I learned afterwards is that the Iraqi parliament came back online on 10-10-10, and that's when they were intending to resurrect this revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. And then it wasn't until December 10th I was with at a very 3D 10 days of marketing seminars and whatnot, and I was then asked, do you know about the dinar? And it was with somebody that I knew kind of had some very esoteric inroads, and I tuned in at that point with my guides, and I asked, is this something I'm supposed to know about? And it was 2 days later is when I went and did my first reserve, basically, because we were out in the middle of nowhere, and I really just needed to get to a bank and do a reserve. But that's how I found out about it. It was my guides actually said, yes, 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 do this. This is what is going to open the doors for more of the wealth distribution of what you need to bring forth your life's purpose. So I actually haven't shared that before. So it was a more esoteric guidance for me in regards to getting involved. And every step of the way, for me, this has been very much about the spiritual aspect of what this means for humanity. So, and what this means for each of us individually, as we're really being called forth to re-examine or revalue ourselves, just like what you're talking about, Sean, with this enslavement matrix and with the debt slavery, is for us to actually reevaluate ourselves and revalue ourselves a much more, not on our FICA rating, but much more on the value of our heart and the vibration that we're putting out as our purity of heart, knowing that value, who we are and the value we hold as a human being,